Chapter 1628. In the Battle of the God Burial Valley, the 12 sovereign emperors were bewitched by a message. Their Taoist robes covered their appearance and aura. The culprit was the person who set up the array. He was hidden among the 12, and his cultivation was above Zhou Wendy's. This person hid very well. Qin Hao originally wanted to ask about Han Lingxian and Zhan Wu's situation. But now there was no need to ask. Even Zhou Wendy, as a participant, didn't know the identity of the mastermind. Whether or not Han Lingxian and Zhan Wu were involved, they probably wouldn't know more than Zhou Wendy. Maybe Han Lingxian and Zhan Wu had their own difficulties back then. Maybe they had no choice. But after that, they killed Zhan Lang, Yu Feng, Qing Qing, and Xian Yu. Qin Hao couldn't ignore this. Senior sister's family was in the East Continent, so Qin Hao had to return to the Chilan Path Mountain on behalf of Eastern Sky. Also, he was very worried about Wei Wei's current situation. Dendi had to return for the trip to the East Continent. It was better to ask Zhan Wu and Han Lingxian face to face. Although he didn't know what their cultivation level was, Qin Hao wasn't worried with senior sister accompanying them. Even if the Sunset Bow was still in Zhan Wu's hands, the other party didn't know the Sunset Heart Sutra, so the power of the arrow would be greatly reduced. It was time for him to take back the bow. Qin Hao and Saint Emperor Jiang talked a lot after staying in the mountain for the night. They told each other about what happened back then. The next day, they returned to Liao City. Have you really decided? Saint Emperor Jiang stood at the peak of the Saint Mountain with his hands behind his back. He looked at the vast sea of clouds, and the sun slowly pushed the clouds out. Yes. Qin Hao also looked at the sea of clouds and nodded solemnly. This trip back to Liao City was to marry Xiaohan. When is the wedding scheduled? Saint Emperor Jiang asked. How could he be absent from Denda's wedding? A month later, it's the moment of my rebirth, Qin Hao said. It had been 12 years. Jiang Country's emperor spirit had awakened in Qiu Tian Town, and he had met Xiaohan for the first time. This year, he was 28 years old. In this life, time flew by. However, this life was still as exciting as ever. Haha, back in the day, how peerless and unparalleled you were as the sovereign lord. No one in the 4 regions disrespected you. Who would have thought that 600 years later, you would actually return to the body of a young man, cultivate anew, and step onto the path of an emperor? This can be considered as a blessing. Saint Emperor Jiang sighed. In his previous life, Qin Hao had become an emperor through alchemy. With the Sunset Bow in his hand, his name had shaken the East Continent. However, he did not have a source spirit and his martial arts were flawed. There was always a trace of imperfection. In this life, Qin Hao's 3 souls were one. His Dharch body had gone through 54 great tribulations of Tao validation. He had 2 Dharch laws. Even though he had lost the Sunset Bow and his alchemy abilities, his martial strength alone was terrifying enough. Yangui City had defeated Tiangang Temple's Huitong. The entire battle had been witnessed by Holy Emperor Jiang. Huitong was not a weakling. Not to mention the northern borderline, even in the entire eastern continent, there was probably no one who could defeat him at the same level. An unblemished emperor was definitely worthy of his reputation. However, not only had Qin Hao defeated him, he had not even used his trump card. The depth of the Emperor's path was terrifying. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten. Here's something good for you. Qin Hao faced Holy Emperor Jiang. The will of the Emperor flowed in his body. Several Divine Palace Tai Wei Peak medicine classics and imperial methods filtered into his mind. On his golden finger, the vast essence of martial arts condensed and slowly fell between Holy Emperor Jiang's eyebrows. This scene is so similar to what happened back then. Holy Emperor Jiang smiled. His entire body was completely relaxed, allowing Qin Hao's will of the Emperor to flow into his spirit. His mind trembled slightly, and the Divine Palace's medicine classics flashed. countless characters flew and turned into a river of the great path that flowed into his spiritual soul and imprinted in it. Where did you get this? After the transmission of the will of the great path was completed, Holy Emperor Jiang looked at Qin Hao in shock. The methods of the medicine classics in his mind were shocking. It's a secret. Qin Hao chuckled. Old rules. I know, and you can't spread it. Otherwise, this time, a great disaster will come. Su Jin, let's go. With a call, 2 beams of Emperor's light rose from the top of the holy mountain. The divine path tearing precepts flowed. Qin Hao's will arrived, and the space took the initiative to open a gap. He and Su Jin disappeared in the direction of northern Liao. Holy Emperor Jiang stood at the top of the mountain and did not move. His heart was like a sea that could not be calmed for a long time. The alchemy that Qin Hao passed on to him this time was more profound than that of Sunset Peak in his previous life. It contained the subtleties of the heavenly path and was vast and broad. It surpassed his understanding of alchemy and opened a new door for him. He knew very well that Qin Hao's move was not just to transmit a few methods, but to pave a higher ladder for him. Following the ladder, he could touch a stronger emperor's path, the unblemished realm, and even the legendary limit of Emperor's path, Nirvana. The value of this was immeasurable. I owe him another favor, but it feels so good. Holy Emperor Jiang finally came back to his senses. Facing the rising sun of the great path, he breathed a sigh of relief. The limit of Emperor's path, the Nirvana realm. Who in the East continent had stepped into this level? Probably no one. If Zhan Wu knew about this, would he feel guilty and regretful about what happened in the past? The one who regretted it more was Han Lingxian. Dendu was about to marry another girl. Poor Empress Lingxian of the East continent. So what if she had thousands of miles of land? She had missed the most important person in her life. The news of Qin Hao's return to Liao City and his marriage to Xiao Han caused a huge sensation and quickly spread across the Beijiang. The news of the marriage went beyond the West Ocean and covered the entire western Liang. This time, Qin Hao had returned and led the emperors to fight in Yangue City in the Beijiang. He had become the absolute focus of attention, and now he was marrying Emperor Zhao's daughter. The entire Beijiang was in an uproar and the entire western Liang was in an uproar. The senior members of the major forces and sect hurried from all directions and tried their best to arrive in Liao City on the day of the wedding to witness it in person. But for Qin Hao's family and friends, they were not too surprised. His marriage with Xiao Han should have been held a long time ago, but it had been delayed for too long. However, everyone was still full of expectations. On this day, in the prosperous Liao City, a group of people with great auras arrived. The group was bright and luxurious as they headed straight for the martial emperor palace. Western Liang Qin State, Old Ancestor Qin, Old Third Qin, Old Fourth Qin, Great Chancellor Haidafu, King Qi de Xiong. Tang Mansion, Old Ancestor Tang, Clan Leader Blood Qilin, Qin Hao's uncle Tang Jia. Qin State's Supreme Patriarch, Fengli Temple, State Preceptor Chen Kang. As well as many juniors, Qin Yu, Zhuojunshan, Fengli Temple disciples, Jian Ren, Tiger Cliff, Li Gangpao, Wang Taidan, and so on. The group stepped into the martial emperor palace and raised the banner of the Qin emperor. No one dared to stop them. They directly charged into Xiao Han's palace, Qin Hao's Hall of Thought, and caught Qin Hao red-handed. Hao, why didn't you go home first after returning from the southern region? It's fine even if you don't go. You fought with the Yan Emperor of the northern region, and now you're holding your wedding in Liao City. Have you considered the feelings of your ancestors? Old Fourth Qin lectured earnestly. He wanted to have a good talk with Qin Hao. How could a wedding not be held in the family of the man? If it could be said that the Qin clan relied on Xiao Wudi's name to hug Xiao Yi's thigh, things were different now. After Qin Hao's battle at Yangue City, Everyone in the Qin clan heard that the entire Northern Borders Alliance was wiped out in one fell swoop. Qin Hao's fists defeated the divine monk of the northern region's Tiangang Temple, Huitong. Many people admitted that the monk's cultivation was unparalleled under the sovereign lord level. Therefore, the world should know how strong the Qin people were. They were not hugging Xiao Yi's thigh. It was Xiao Yi who was basking in the glory of the Qin people. The wedding should be held in western Liang. Didn't third uncle say that the wedding? Third uncle, are your old habits acting up again? Qin Hao interrupted old third Qin. His third uncle was a fence-sitter, and his specialty was to steer with the wind. Pretend I didn't say anything. Old third Qin shut his mouth and didn't dare to look Qin Hao in the eye. Don't be so fierce to your third uncle. He has become an honest man in the past 12 years. The wedding. Old fourth Qin didn't let it go. Only he dared to ignore Qin Hao's majestic aura. All right, fourth brother. The child has his own thoughts. As long as he is with Han it doesn't matter where the wedding is held, Qin Dingtian said. He and Tang Rong had been staying in the Emperor Palace for a long time, and they had already gotten used to the life around here. State Preceptor, Grand Chancellor, please persuade him. When we came, you guys were the ones who paid the most attention to etiquette. Hurry up and talk to the child. Old fourth Qin didn't give up and asked for help from Chen Kang and Haidafu. Chen Kang and Haidafu looked at each other and walked out. Xiao Han and I still have something to do. You guys take your time. Qin Hao grabbed Xiao Han's hand and ran out of the hall together. Fourth uncle was too stubborn and couldn't be suppressed at all. He should leave it to father and mother to deal with him. Isn't this a little impolite? Fourth uncle has always treated you like his own son. Xiao Han tugged Qin Hao's sleeve and thought back to the time when they were together. If it wasn't for old fourth Qin, the courtyard would have been occupied by Qin Yuhai. Qin Hao tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and his body surged with Emperor's light. He held Xiao Han's hand and soared into the sky. If it was possible, he wanted to listen to his fourth uncle, but that would waste a lot of time. After the wedding, he had something important to do. Liaodu became more and more lively. Countless experts came from the vast Emperor city. Qin Hao didn't know what his fourth uncle, his father-in-law, and his father had discussed. In the end, the wedding was set at the Martial Emperor Palace. Moreover, there was news that not only Qin Hao's wedding, Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, and Qin Yun's wedding would also be held on the same day. Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, and Qin Yun were much dimmer than Qin Hao. But now that they had cultivated to the Emperor realm, their names had been widely spread in the western Liang territory and attracted a lot of attention. Moreover, Yi Shuihan was the only son of the Dragon Abyss Emperor, and the future Emperor of Luo Shui. Xiaogua had been following Qin Hao to this day, and was loyal to him. He was respected by the Daqin as the crown prince of Qingqi, and the throne would be passed down from generation to generation. Both of them were legends, and were admired and envied by the martial artists of Western Liang. This wedding was even more shocking. The wedding was imminent. At this moment, in a pavilion in the Martial Emperor Palace, divine light flickered, and a rich pill aura filled the air. Qin Hao activated the Great Void Cauldron, and the immortal Samsara technique communicated with the artifact's spirit. The Emperor will resonated with each other, and a vast aura of the Great Tao was incomparably majestic. He was seriously refining pills. Behind Qin Hao, an old figure sat cross-legged. In the pavilion, there were only the two of them, and no one dared to disturb them. The rules of the cauldron, the Emperor will into the pills, the control of the fire, the amount of medicine, and the fine control. It's no worse than Uncle Master Tai Wei's methods. It seems that he has inherited the true skills, Muri said in an old voice. She sat with a stooped body, looking so ordinary that she might not attract the attention of others even if she walked on the road. But who would have thought that she had the power of the flawless Emperor path, and was the only remaining preacher of the divine palace, the supreme martial house of the continent. Qin Hao looked behind him and watched Muri. He watched her grow older day by day, and her aura was like a lamp that had run out of oil. His heart was filled with great pain. "I want senior sister to be the most beautiful woman at the wedding," Qin Hao said. "Idiot, the prettiest woman should be your bride." Muri's eyelids, which were covered with black spots, opened. Only this pair of eyes exuded the sacred brilliance that belonged to the flawless empress. Chapter 1629. It's not the same. Little Han will also think that senior sister is the most beautiful, Qin Hao said. Muri raised her eyes and sat on the ground, carefully looking at Qin Hao. Sincere, resolute, with a steadiness that did not match his age. He was extreme in his actions. He could treat people well enough to give away his entire world, but he could also be evil enough to destroy an entire clan. Such a character did not meet the standards of Migres's disciple selection. However, Master Migres's obsession was extremely appreciative of Qin Hao. Not only Master, but also Eastern Sky and Zhangyu. The 7 peaks are still here. How good would that be? Muri said. If Divine Palace was here, it would definitely not be absent from this wedding. Qin Hao did not like to be restrained and would not stay at Migres Peak. Even if Divine Palace had never interfered with the mortal world, with old man Migres's temper, he would still send people to attend the ceremony. With the tyrannical position of the continent's supreme martial house, he would express to the people of the continent that this was the wedding of a disciple of Migres Palace. What kind of glory would it bring to Qin Hao? Unfortunately, the 7 peaks are destroyed. Senior sister can't even give you and little Han a decent gift. Muri lowered her head slightly, filled with endless bitterness and helplessness. In the continent's supreme martial house, there was a legend of a god realm powerhouse ascending. However, they could not even give a congratulatory gift. Qin Hao's heart felt as if it was pierced by a sharp thorn. If Divine Palace was here, how good would that be? If Divine Palace was here, Senior Brother Eastern Sky and Senior Brother Zhang, you would come to attend the ceremony. Each of the 7 peaks would send a representative. Even if they did not mention any gifts, 7 Nirvana Heavenly Emperors would come to the wedding in person. What kind of grand scene would that be? Senior sister, being by my side is the best gift in the world. Trying hard not to let the mist fall from his eyes, Qin Hao turned around. A beam of holy light flew out of his storage ring and fell into the purple gold medicine cauldron. 5-colored Emperor Net Immortal, Emperor-grade spiritual material. When the 2 senior brothers were still alive, they sneaked into Marshal Uncle Tai Wei's herb garden and stole it. It was a gift that they wanted to give to their senior sister. After coming out, Qin Hao tried to return the favor to Muri several times, but was rejected. Because his senior martial sister didn't need it anymore, the spiritual power contained in the Emperor Net Immortal wouldn't be of much use to Muri's Emperor's Tao. At this moment, Qin Hao threw the entire Di Luo fairy into the cauldron as a supplementary medicine. Together with the delicate pearl grass's rejuvenating power, the Emperor-grade spiritual material could exert its greatest medicinal effect and restore senior sister's youthful appearance. Of course, if he refined the Di Luo Immortal into an Emperor pill and used it on Tao-confirming Dili, Qin Hao might immediately break through another level and reach the 5th stage Tao-confirming realm. But what harm could it do? What a waste! Muri smiled faintly. Her mottled old face had an indescribable gentleness. She didn't stop him. She liked to see her junior brother like this. There was no woman in the world who wouldn't be touched after witnessing a man who was willing to sacrifice everything for her appearance. Of course, she and Qin Hao were just sister and brother. There was no flaw or ambiguity between them. 9 Dragons' fire-tempering technique. Qin Hao murmured, and the Emperor's will around him grew stronger. The red lotus demonic flame formed 9 divine dragons that swept out and intertwined with each other. They let out waves of domineering dragon roars and disappeared into the great void cauldron one after another. At this moment, the medicinal fragrance of the elixir room filled the air, and 5-colored emperor's light overflowed. The elixir was formed. So handsome, much more handsome than eastern sky. Even Izue can't compare. Mori stood up shakily and walked step by step to Qin Hao. Qin Hao waved his hand and the cauldron opened. 5-colored emperor's light gushed out, and a purple-gold emperor pill flew out from the light and landed in his palm. He gently placed it in front of Mori. Orange-colored peerless grade. "Junior brother, you're amazing," Mori praised with a smile. She didn't expect Qin Hao's alchemy skills to be so exquisite. His ability to control medicine was at the peak, and he could even refine an emperor pill to a peerless grade. If Uncle Master Tai Wei was here, he would be embarrassed. Mori stretched out her hand and swallowed the pill. The moment it entered her mouth, a flawless emperor's light bloomed around her, and an extremely shocking aura of life surged violently. With the abundant spiritual power of the 5-colored emperor grade spiritual material, as well as the effect of the pearl grass, and more than 10 other precious royal grade medicinal materials, this emperor pill contained an extremely strong power. However, compared to Muri's vast emperor's will, its power was still too small. Even so, Miaoli had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Waves after waves of powerful medicinal strength flooded her meridians. Her stooped figure gradually straightened up, the black spots disappeared, and her wrinkled skin gradually regained its luster, recovering its tender color. In just a few breaths, the old woman in front of Qin Hao had turned back into a young girl. "Senior sister, you're so beautiful," Qin Hao praised from the bottom of his heart. Miaoli smiled. Her smile could topple cities. Before she could open her mouth to speak, an invisible force suddenly descended. It was as if the heavenly Tao was crushing down, and it fell on Miaoli's body. The 5-colored emperor light on her body suddenly shattered, and her radiant appearance faded rapidly. The wrinkles crawled back on her face, and the black spots were densely packed. Her upright figure gradually bent back. In an instant, she returned to her original position. How could this be? Qin Hao's eyes were filled with shock. It shouldn't be. Although the 300-year-old pearl grass couldn't withstand senior sister's flawless emperor's Tao, it should have been able to last until the wedding even if it couldn't last long. Why did it only happen for a moment? This is the power of the heavenly Tao. Mori tried hard to raise her head and straighten her spine, but she felt as if she was carrying a heavy mountain, and was being crushed by the power of the great Tao. Her flawless emperor's Tao couldn't withstand this power. The restraint of the heavenly Tao was something that even a peerless emperor couldn't break free from. Life and death were controlled by the heavens, not by men. Qin Hao still hadn't woken up from his shock. He watched helplessly as his senior sister aged again. Was this force of suppression the heavenly Tao? The divine palace was created to break the limits of martial art. The pursuit of the divine Tao was the highest concept. Only by flying to the divine realm could one be on par with the heavenly Tao, and not limited by lifespan, transcend reincarnation, and live forever. At this moment, Qin Hao remembered Migres's teachings. "I'm useless." Qin Hao clenched his fists tightly. God. Only by becoming a god could one use the heavenly Tao to reverse the heavenly Tao and break the rules of survival of all things. If he became a god, senior sister wouldn't have to suffer so much. You've worked very hard, but your emperor's Tao cultivation is too far away from the heavenly Tao. Don't be sad. Not only senior sister, but all flawless great emperors, and even nirvana extremes as strong as master, can't escape the heavenly Tao. Mori stood on her tiptoes and wanted to pat Qin Hao's shoulder, but she realized that her junior brother was too tall for her to touch. With a slight sigh, Mori turned around and slowly walked out. This was fate. However, if Qin Hao wanted to see her original appearance on the day of the wedding, she could still fulfill such a small request. Heavenly Tao, divine realm. Qin Hao looked at the back of his senior sister as she left. That sigh went straight into the depths of his heart, like a mountain pressing down on his chest. Senior sister's current appearance was his future, and also Xiao Han's future. It was a fate that no one could escape. To break this fate, one must become a god. The wedding was getting closer and closer, and there was only one day left. Liao City was filled with a grand scene. From the city walls to the martial emperor palace, all defensive weapons were removed and replaced with festive ribbons. All the guards in the martial emperor palace were also removed. Not a single soldier could be seen. There were countless martial emperors, human sovereigns, and Yuan venerates all over the streets. With Miao Li overseeing the wedding, even if a Nirvana heavenly emperor behaved atrociously, he would lose a layer of skin even if he didn't die. No one would dare to disturb Qin Hao's wedding. On this day, there were more guests visiting the Hall of Vast Thought. The orphans of the former Qin dynasty in the wasteland, Puyang Shaolei and Puyang Shaojun, as well as Duan Ruiying from the Heaven's End Cliff, had come to the Hall of Vast Thought to celebrate. In addition, members of the Qin family, which was also the birthplace of the Qin family in Akita Town, had come. Many Qin people had come, including old ancestor Qin. If Qin Hao hadn't destroyed the 4 races of the wasteland, the Qin people wouldn't have had the chance to come out of the bloody abyss. The blood race had also come to the martial emperor palace. After all, the Qin people and the blood race had put aside their differences and reconciled. Qin Hao had played a big part in this. Qin Hao was the reason why Qin Yun and Ah Ku had the courage to be together. In fact, Qin Yun and Ah Ku had already held their wedding. Now that they were holding it again, it was just a festive occasion to share in Qin Hao's extravagance. "Big brother Qin Hao, do you need me to be your bridesmaid?" Shaolei asked. "Me too." The daughter of the Heaven's End Cliff, Miss Ruiying, was all smiles. Qin Hao had saved her life before, so she had completely merged with the ice bird resentful spirit. That depends on Little Han's opinion. However, the chances aren't great, because K.Er has taken the bridesmaid spot. She will only allow her to be the bridesmaid. Qin Hao said cheerfully. "Brother-in-law, when are you and my sister getting married? Why don't we hold it together?" Xiaojun said half-jokingly. 12 years had passed, and the scrawny youth from back then had grown into a tall young man. Furthermore, after regaining control of the wastelands, Xiaojun's face had gained the might of an emperor due to his bloodline. "Don't speak nonsense." Shaolei glared at Xiaojun. She only had admiration for Qin Hao and did not have any greed. Didn't he know what kind of occasion this was? Xiao Han was so dazzling that she could not compare to her. "If you can't be the main wife, you can be a concubine. Although my heart aches for you, I can only be at ease if I entrust my sister to you," Xiaojun said with his hands behind his back. He looked like he was joking, but he really meant it. Qin Hao's current status could be said to be the god of Western Liang. A single word from him could decide the fate of the 2 main regions, Western Liang and the northern border. "I'll get angry with you if you continue speaking nonsense." Shaolei's eyes were a little red. She did not want to add to Qin Hao and Xiao Han's hearts because of her. "Don't, sister. I was wrong." Xiaojun hurriedly apologized. "Don't make your sister angry. Her happiness is more important than anything else," Qin Hao said solemnly. After Shaolei heard this, she felt a trace of jealousy in her heart. It seemed that Qin Hao really did not have any feelings for her. Xiaojun looked at Qin Hao and then at his sister. He knew that he was being greedy, but it was really regretful. "Disciple, my precious disciple, ha ha ha. Old madman, slow down. Wait for me." The voices of 2 old men came from outside the hall. In the next moment, Dan Xian and the drunkard rushed in. "Master, senior drunkard." Qin Hao hurriedly went forward and bowed. No matter when or where, he would never forget the help these two had given him, especially when Dan Xian had risked his life to refine pills for him and was trapped in the ice coffin for several years. He would never forget such kindness. Chapter 1630. The day of the wedding had finally arrived. On this day, the entire martial emperor palace was filled with people. Most of the people who came to watch the ceremony came from all over western Liang and northern borderline to congratulate them. Emperor Xiao would not stop anyone from entering the palace on the big day of his daughter and son-in-law's wedding. Regardless of their status, everyone was allowed to enter the palace to congratulate them. As a result, the Emperor Wu Palace could not accommodate everyone even though there were many viewing platforms. At this moment, there was a hubbub of voices in the palace. The people who came were all talking about the marriage. They were talking about Qin Hao, Qi Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, and Qin Yun. Not long ago, the situation in the northern borderline was tense. It seemed like a war between kingdoms was going to break out. It was inevitable that there would be mountains of corpses and rivers of blood. Who would have thought that Qin Hao would return one day and turn the tables on this chaotic war and suppress it, eliminating the threat of all the top forces to northern Liao in time. This is truly a blessing for the common people. Who knows how many innocent people have survived? Emperor Zhao's son-in-law is really an extraordinary person. He stepped onto the emperor's path in a few years. Everyone around him has amazing cultivation. The emperors are returning. How imposing! Many warriors in the northern borderline were discussing. They had only heard of Qin Hao's performance in the emperor's martial arts competition. Today they finally saw the real deal. The new generation of leaders has stepped onto the stage of history. Our Western Liang martial arts world has entered its most glorious era. It's finally rising. An elder from Western Liang could not help but cry. Western Liang had no emperors, but now there was more than one. His Highness Crown Prince of Qingqi has followed Qin Hao for many years. It's said that he recognized Qin Hao as his big brother at first sight. Since then, he has been loyal to Qin Hao. Now, he has received the blessings he deserved. Sometimes, fate is really magical. Didn't the Emperor of Dragon Abyss hide that he has a son? Ha ha ha. Countless people were talking about the trivial matters of the past. It was these trivial matters that led to today's glorious era. Although they did not experience it personally, they could feel the legendary process and how wonderful it was. At this moment, in the martial Emperor Palace, the vast viewing platform could no longer accommodate all the people. Many people were standing on the palace walls, and some were standing on the roofs of the palaces, looking at the grand wedding platform at the front. The wedding platform was built with the power of an emperor. It was as if a mountain had been moved and the sea had been reclaimed. It stood in the middle of the palace and was dozens of feet higher than the main hall. No matter where one stood, even the commoners on the streets could see the magnificent scene of the wedding platform. On the stairs leading to the wedding stage, there were countless young men and beautiful women. They stood on both sides of the stairs, all the way up until they reached the highest point. The atmosphere was very majestic. They came from the various sects in western Liang and the northern frontier. They were all personal disciples of the sect leaders or elders. Their identities and statuses were extremely extraordinary. On normal days, it was difficult to see even a single one of them. Today, however, they came on their own initiative and formed a huge guard of honor. At the top of the high platform, there were also many mighty figures sitting there. They were all dressed in green, and all of them were emperors. Qin Hao, Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, and Qin Yun. Their elders were all sitting there. Qin Dingtian's face was full of smiles. Today was probably the happiest day of his life. Once, his marriage with Tang Rong was opposed. On the day of their wedding, not a single person from the Tang residence was present. They looked down on his birth from the bottom of their hearts. Today was his son's wedding. All the heroes of Western Liang and the northern borderline were present. The venue could not accommodate all of them. Tang Rong was also very happy. Back then, she adopted Xiao Han and treated her as her daughter-in-law. Now, her dream had come true. Han was going to marry Qin Hao. It was like a dream. Look at all of you smiling. Ding Tian, Xiao Rong. Now you can be completely relieved. Qin Shilong said. Beside him, old ancestor Tang was also smiling. Qin Hao once told him that if he lived a few more years, he would be able to see better things. Today, he was really excited to see such a grand occasion. They are relieved, but I am a little worried. Sigh, I only have one daughter. Xiao Yi slapped his thigh and pretended to shake his head. His face was filled with gratification. Do you think he would kidnap your daughter? Kei Mu sat beside Xiao Yi and said. She temporarily took over the identity of Xiao Han's birth mother. It was not like her daughter would disappear after she was married off. Yes, brother Xiao. Hao Er's personality is like mine. He knows how to dote on his wife. He will definitely treat Xiao Han well and will not let her suffer any grievances. Qin Dingtian smiled lightly. I don't know if his personality is like yours, but he is much more ruthless than you. He is a little like me. Xiao Yi smiled and looked at Qin Hao. It was a little strange. As a father, he did not have the aura of an emperor. Why was his son's style so swift and decisive? Xiao Yi felt that it was indeed very similar to him. If it wasn't for Qin Hao destroying the Murong family, Northern Liao would probably end up in a miserable state. You ha ha ha! Qin Dingtian was amused. The father-in-law approved of his son-in-law very much. Senior Dan Xian, Kang State Preceptor, Dafu Country's Prime Minister. Today, everyone must drink a few more cups. During the years when Dingtian and I were not around, Hao relied on all of you to be able to achieve what he has today. Tang Rong said sincerely. As a master, it is my duty to do something for my disciple. Dan Xian replied happily. Chen Kang and Hai Dafu nodded together. They thought back to 10 years ago. At that time, Qin Hao was already a young man with a hidden edge. Now, he was almost 30 years old. His temperament was more vigorous, and his attitude was stronger. Of course, his actions were more stable. We must drink. We will not go home until we are drunk. Yi Longyuan said. When it comes to drinking, the old man has never been afraid of anyone. The drunkard patted the wine gourd at his waist confidently. He looked at Nailan Jinggang and said, speaking of which, the happiest person today is the Emperor of Wei. Both of his daughters have been married. One has become the wife of the Prince of Luoshui, and the other has become the wife of the Prince of Qi. Shouldn't you say something? In the Wei Kingdom of Western Liang, the Emperor of Wei, Nailan Jinggang, looked at everyone with joy and said, Yes, I am the happiest. Of the two daughters, Xiao Zhu is married to Xuehan, and Li is entrusted to Xiao Gua. The 4 empires of Western Liang have completely become one family. We should drink until we are drunk. When they were at Qiyang University, Yi Xuehan had fallen in love with Naransu. However, at that time, the other party was strong and he was too inferior to express his feelings. Now that he had stepped into the Emperor realm, he mustered up the courage to propose marriage to the Western Wei Kingdom. As he wished, he got the beauty and married Naransu. Of course, there were some imperial political factors that could be so smooth. In the face of Luoshui's proposal, the Western Wei Kingdom was under great pressure. If they could form a good relationship with Luoshui, this marriage could guarantee the imperial power of the Wei Kingdom for hundreds of years. However, Nailan Jinggang did not expect that Nailan Li would agree to be with Xiaogua. This child did not have the idea of starting a family. Nailan Jinggang guessed that perhaps Nailan Li wanted to use the position of Prince of Qi in the Qin Kingdom to restrain Luoshui. After all, the child had grown up and could see many things clearly in his heart. It was true that the empires of Western Liang were united, but everything was built on a weak foundation. If they were not united, they would be suppressed by the foreign forces. Things were different now. Western Qin, Luo Shui, and even the wasteland had Emperor Yuan holding the fort. Only the Western Wei kingdom did not. It was really difficult for the weak to survive. In order to survive, there were many things that they did not want to do, but they had to try. What made Nailan Zhengang feel fortunate was that Yi Shuihan and Xiaogua had good characters. With Qin Hao in charge of the overall situation, the western region would not have internal strife in the short term. At least, he was luckier than Emperor Zhao. The Zhao kingdom was also in western Liang, but no descendant of the Zhao clan was related to Qin Hao. Looking at Emperor Zhao's expression, one could tell how depressed and conflicted he was in his heart. The elders talked one after another. A big wedding, in fact, had their own standpoints. But today was definitely something to be happy about. However, suddenly, the wind and clouds above the martial emperor palace changed. In the distance, a powerful aura accompanied by a dazzling stream of light flashed rapidly. What's going on? Feeling the pressure from the heavens, many people's hearts suddenly tightened, and their faces changed color. They looked at the streams of light that were surging over, and they saw several large armies sweeping over in the void. It was an extremely shocking sight. There were golden chariots rolling over, carrying countless golden generals. The person at the front was sitting on a dazzling emperor's throne. There were countless men and women with outstanding temperaments, holding all kinds of musical instruments, like a group of celestial masters from the heavens. There were also many powerful monks and gods, chanting Buddhist scriptures. Along the way, they were wrapped in Buddhist golden light, looking extremely solemn. Besides that, there was another long procession of flying horses that pulled numerous luxurious carriages that were filled with countless precious medicinal materials. It was Emperor Qi of the northern border, the monks of Juying Palace, Tiangang Temple, and Medicine Emperor Pavilion's Pavilion Master Jiang. These guys. Xiao Yi looked at the sky, and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. Qi of the northern border is here to congratulate you. An emperor's voice shook the heavens and earth. Emperor Qi waved his hand, and the golden chariots obediently landed in the martial emperor palace, making space in the palace. Oh, so there's a team to rely on. My sincerity. Emperor Qi's face became a little awkward after landing. The warriors he brought with him were all members of the Qi clan's royal family, and they came especially for Qin Hao. You came alone, but you brought so many people. How much food do you have to eat? Xiao Yi smiled and stood up to welcome them. Juying Palace is here to congratulate Emperor Qin. Palace Master Chao and Vice Palace Master led the group down. Tiangang Temple is here to congratulate Benefactor Qin, Benefactor Qi, and Benefactor Yi. May the Buddhist light shine on the three of you. At the same time, we hope that Benefactor Qin will be benevolent and protect the peace of the northern border. Fa Zhao and the monks landed. He was now an abbot. Xiao Yi nodded. The monks of Tiangang Temple were here, and the last sentence was probably their true intention. Brother Xiao, I was wrong in the past. I hope you can forgive me. Today, the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion is here to congratulate you. The moment Pavilion Master Jiang saw Xiao Yi, he apologized profusely. Ever since he was slapped by Saint Emperor Jiang, he no longer had the arrogance of the past. Those who come are all guests. Everyone, please take a seat. Xiao Yi extended his hand and invited them. Everyone nodded and walked up the stairs. Countless people witnessed this scene and their hearts trembled. As expected, in the Battle of Yangue City, did Qin Hao cause the various powers of the northern border to be afraid? They seemed to be here to congratulate, but in reality they were here to apologize. The Tiangang Temple even tied the peace of the northern border to Qin Hao. How helpless were they? Qin Shilong, Old Ancestor Tang, Dan Xian, Drunkard, Chun Kang, and the others all felt their hearts trembling. They didn't witness the battle, But the scene before them was enough to prove how powerful Qin Hao was. Not only Western Liang, but the entire northern border was in awe of him. After the shock, everyone's face was naturally filled with pride. Dong, dong, dong. Loud rumbling sounds came from even further away. The sound of drums shook the sky, as if an earthquake was occurring. But this time, the rumbling sounds didn't come from the northern border, but from the southern horizon. It seemed that groups of supreme experts were descending, mixed with the humming of swords. The power of heaven and earth was 10 times stronger than when Emperor Qi and the others appeared, causing countless people to tremble in fear. Xiao Yi suddenly stopped on the stairs, and his heart trembled violently. He could feel the terrifying aura. No matter which one it wasn't any weaker than Zhan Zhu and Guang He. In front of this power, Ancestor Yen and the Palace Emperor couldn't be compared at all. Is someone here to cause trouble? Emperor Qi also felt it. His face twisted as he looked towards the south. The pressure made him feel suffocated. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dazzling figures descended. Saint Emperor Jiang, Ancestor Zhan, and Ancestor Qi all appeared at the same time, standing above the martial Emperor Palace. Their faces were extremely solemn. Originally, they didn't plan to appear, but now they were forced to appear. The great Jing Empire of the southern region is here to congratulate. One after another, enormous void soul ships streaked across the sky. The Nightnet Palace of the southern region is here to congratulate. 100 zhang tall demonic bird flew over, its 8 wings covering the sky. The martial Ning Empire of the southern region is here to congratulate. The Arhat Palace of the southern region is here to congratulate. The proud God Empire of the southern region is here to congratulate. The Wuk Sword Sect of the southern region is here to congratulate. Chapter 1631. Voices rose and fell one after another. Soon, a magnificent scene appeared above the martial Emperor Palace. A large number of powerhouses descended. Emperor's light flickered, and each of them was peerless. It turned out that the emperors of the southern region had arrived in person. Sword Emperor, Emperor Ning Wuming, Palace Master Yi. Emperor Luo, Ancestor Jing, and the Emperor of the Li family, Li Yuan. There weren't many people, but the people accompanying them were undoubtedly Emperor Yuan's elders and clan elders. Except for the Xianyuan family, almost everyone from the 3 sovereigns and 4 sects of the southern region was present. Countless people looked at the formation in the void in horror. All of them were emperors, and each of them was so dazzling, exuding an unparalleled aura. What exactly happened today? The Beijiang cultivators were dumbfounded, and the Shiliang cultivators were shocked beyond words. They had never seen such a scene before. Did a grand wedding alarm the 3 regions? With a bang, Dan Xian's wine cup fell to the ground in shock. On the wedding stage, Qin Shilong, Emperor Wei, Emperor Zhao, and even Yi Longyuan's hands trembled as they held the wine cup. What exactly did this fellow Qin Hao do in the southern territory? Although no invitations were issued, the emperors of the southern region still came in person. Today, except for the East Continent, most of the divine wilderness emperors and emperors were probably present. Everyone, please, please. Xiao Yi tried his best to suppress his emotions, but even so, his legs trembled involuntarily. It wasn't because of fear, but because he was too excited. The southern region's status was second only to the East Continent. Now that he saw the emperors of the southern region, they were indeed peerless. Even if Xiliang and the northern region combined, they still couldn't compare to them. Emperor Qi's expression was unnatural. As an emperor, his status was considered outstanding among the wedding guests. But with the appearance of the southern region's emperors, he suddenly realized that his cultivation base was too ordinary. Compared to the several leading emperors of the southern region, he was nothing. In fact, he couldn't even compare to Emperor Yuan, who was accompanying them. Yan Zhu also has the face to say those words. Fortunately, he died early. Emperor Qi mocked in his heart. Compared to the southern region, the northern region was not inferior at all? It was estimated that the southern region's power was enough to sweep the entire northern region. Mu Yunzong, Yi Ninghong, Ning Wu, Emperor Ming, and the others landed one after another. They walked side by side with Xiao Yi to the ceremonial stage and sat opposite Qin Shilong and the others, one on the left and the other on the right. Immediately, their auras overwhelmed the people of Xiliang and the northern borderline. It was not intentional. Let's go down too, Saint Emperor Jiang said. He couldn't let the southern region emperors look down on him. However, if he, Ancestor Qi, and Ancestor Zhan went over to support the situation, it would still not change the balance between the two sides, but it would more or less look better. There were many imperial lords in the southern region. Although Holy Emperor Jiang was a true self-great emperor and had reached the second level of the imperial Tao, he could suppress 2 or 3 people. However, when facing so many imperial lords, he could not suppress their auras at all. Among the newcomers, Qin Hao asked the person beside him in a soft voice, dressed in festive bridegroom attire. First Wu Kei held the communication tool used by the sword sect. I only called uncle. I didn't expect them all to come. Shouwuk replied. He was also dressed splendidly. He and Su Jin were the groomsmen of the wedding. Sigh, so annoying. Qin Hao laughed. He didn't inform the forces of the southern region about the wedding because he didn't want too many emperors to come and cause a commotion. He was also afraid that the elders would feel uncomfortable. Annoying? If you can contact Lei Jiao, Feng Qianli, Qian Ning, and Zhou Wudao, they won't be absent. They will definitely come with their elders. Don't forget, the lives of 300 Divine Palace disciples are in your hands. Shouwuk looked at Qin Hao. Too many people? Most people were already absent. If the 300 disciples of the Divine Palace brought their own Emperor Yuan here, that would truly be a huge crowd. That would be a grand occasion. Don't, I'm afraid of you. Qin Hao felt a headache when he thought of hundreds of emperors gathering at the same time. He just wanted to keep a low profile, okay? However, he was still very surprised that the emperors of the southern region came in person. They did give him a lot of face. The Xianyuan family was destroyed, and the 3 sovereigns and 4 clans were all here. Except for the fact that they didn't have a good relationship with Blazing Sun Temple. If that brat Sun God wasn't here, everyone would be here. By the order of Sun God, Blazing Sun Temple of the southern region is here to congratulate you. All of a sudden, a flaming cloud rolled over with raging flames like a sacred lava river flowing in the sky above the martial Emperor Palace. A scorching pressure descended from the sky, causing the northern borderlines and western Liang's martial artists to exclaim in surprise. Quick, invite them in, invite them in. Xiao Yi hurriedly got up, slightly forgetting himself as he shouted at the powerhouses above the fire cloud. Dan Xian, Qin Shilong, Yilong Yuan, and the others were completely numb. Look, everyone is here. Shouwuk pointed to the fire cloud high in the sky, but why was it hiding inside and not daring to show its head? I don't dare. By the order of Sun God, I have prepared the Sacred Mountain's Lava Emperor Crystal as a congratulatory gift. I hope Emperor Qin Hao doesn't mind. Sun God also said that he would never disappoint Emperor Qin Hao when they meet again. Since I have delivered the message, I will take my leave. He was obviously an Emperor Yuan powerhouse, but his tone was extremely humble. As the congratulatory gift fell, the fire cloud flew towards the south in a panic as if it was fleeing for its life, leaving the guests dumbfounded. What a big deal. Sword Emperor Makamanji looked at the Sacred Mountain's Emperor Crystal that landed on the ceremonial platform. It was like a small hill, exuding a terrifying red flame aura. The Sacred Mountain's Lava Emperor Crystal is nourished by the Tao intent of their emperors. The lava fire spirit is born from this Emperor Crystal. When it reaches adulthood, Its peak strength is comparable to the 7th to 8th Tao confirming realm. It is extremely precious. Of course, if you don't want to wait for the Emperor Crystal to be born, you can also smelt it directly and make it into a weapon. It will definitely be a divine soldier. Emperor Luo explained. The wine in Dan Xian's mouth spurted out directly, and the wine cup almost fell from his hand. Even Ancestor Qi and Saint Emperor Zhang's expressions changed. As for Emperor Qi Ziqing, he just wanted to quickly hide behind someone else. A creature born from a stone would have a stronger cultivation than him in the future. He wanted to die. Moreover, the sun god, that person mentioned, seemed to have a relatively high status and strength in the southern region. But why did he say that he wouldn't disappoint Qin Hao? It was thought-provoking. Not only did Emperor Qi find it strange, but the various emperors from the southern region also found it hard to understand. Saint Emperor Jiang vaguely guessed something. That sun god probably also knew about Qin Hao's true background, which was why he said such a sentence. Who didn't revere Dendi in the East Continent in the past? Let's welcome the newlyweds. Gongsun Changxing, the most loyal servant of the Shao clan and the head steward of the imperial household, let out an extremely excited shout. So far, all the guests had arrived. It was time for the wedding to officially begin. Welcome the newlyweds. Immediately, on the staircase that looked like a staircase to heaven, the handsome men and beautiful women standing on both sides shouted at the same time. Their manners were extremely respectful, and their eyes were filled with excitement. They all knew that Qin Hao would walk past them and witness his heroic bearing with their own eyes. At the bottom of the staircase, Qin Hao, Xiao Han, Xiaogua, Naransu Yishuehan, Qin Yun, Aku, and the others stepped forward side by side and stepped onto the staircase at the same time. At this moment, the world seemed to have returned to peace. The experts standing on the palace walls and on the roof of the palace also descended. Naturally, they couldn't stand on high places as it would be too rude. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to the Qin Emperor. Crack! At this moment, a shocking bolt of lightning suddenly fell from the 9th heaven. The deafening sound of thunder seemed to split the heavens from far away and directly appeared on the scene. What kind of important figure has arrived? Is this power from a god? It was too terrifying. It was 10 times more shocking than the arrival of the southern region emperors. Countless people felt the faint aura approaching and their hearts almost stopped beating. At this moment, even the Emperor Lords and Saint Emperor Jiang on the ceremonial stage stood up and looked in the direction of the lightning with incomparable shock in their eyes. They knew very well that the power that had arrived was far beyond their own. The stronger the Emperor Dao cultivation, the more fear one would feel from it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Balls of vast light appeared frequently in the void. As it got closer, everyone could see it more clearly. It was a majestic divine peak. There was not only one, but a total of 7. The illusory images of the 7 divine peaks were projected above the martial Emperor Palace. It was like the mountains of gods suppressing the heavens, causing all living things to bow down and worship it. That is? Yishuehan looked up and his body trembled violently. How is this possible? Xiaogua's eyes were filled with incomparable shock. The 7 enormous divine peaks were actually the 7 peaks of the divine palace. From left to right, Supreme Radiance, Yun-Yi Yao Guang, Taoist Scripture, Mizar, Xian Tian, and Tian Quan appeared in the center. Immortal clouds swirled around, depicting a magnificent scene. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them. In that part of the world, there were 9 heavens' divine rivers flowing down from the divine mountains. There were ancient immortal birds soaring in the sky, and there was even a 9-headed divine dragon soaring in the sky. It was indescribably spectacular. On each of the majestic divine mountains, there were figures standing. This scene seemed like it should not exist in this world. Perhaps the legendary divine court was just like this. Whoosh! Almost instantly, Qin Hao, Shou Wuk, and the others could not help but cry. It was the Divine Palace. Marshall Way Divine Orthodoxy and the South Pole Divine Palace congratulate Qin Hao, Xiao Gua, Shuihan, Qin Yun, Xiao Han, Aku, and all junior brothers and junior sisters on their wedding. Ha! My good disciple, forgive me for not being able to go. I'll use this method to celebrate with your uncle masters. On the solemn Migres peak in the middle, perfected cultivator Tian Quan spoke. His unparalleled aura of the Nirvana great emperor suppressed everyone and made them not dare to look directly at him. His aura was too strong, as if he were the ruler of the world. Xiao Gua, Xiantian Peak disciples are happy for you. Tian Kei's burly figure appeared in the clouds. Xiao Han, Shuihan, Taoist Scripture Peak celebrates for you. Shermu appeared next to Tian Quebec, Qin Yun, Aku, you have to work hard to give birth to a descendant. Ha! Zhan Xiong of Mizar Palace shouted. Junior brother Qin Hao, you and Xiao Han can't fall behind the others. Otherwise, Zhang Yu and I will look down on you. Eastern Sky, Zhang Yu, and the first chief of the Seven Peaks stood side by side. Their peerless demeanor was amazing. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother. Qin Hao looked at the familiar figures and couldn't help but shed tears. Time is limited. We can't affect the wedding. The Divine Palace stands above the world. Although we can't all go, we should at least send a representative. Muri, you go. Tian Quan said. Yes, master. Among the countless disciples of the Divine Palace, a woman with unparalleled beauty who looked like a goddess accepted the order. Her body shone with a dazzling brilliance, accompanied by the roar of a 9-headed dragon. She rode the dragon and flew out of the picture. At this moment, the heavens and earth shook violently. Everyone could clearly feel that there was an extremely terrifying aura rapidly approaching. Then, a huge black dragon with 9 heads rolled out. On the heads of the 9 dragons stood the silhouette of a peerless woman. Everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream. It turned out that all of this was real. The dragon really flew out of the picture. In an instant, everyone knelt down and worshipped the divine dragon and the woman, chanting the names of the gods. Inverse the universe technique? The sword Emperor Makamanji was so nervous that his palms were sweating. The emperors will press down. In an instant it came from beyond the 9 heavens. This was no longer a power that mortals could possess. It could be called a divine power. The Divine Palace really existed. However, at this moment, Qin Hao, Shou Wuk, and the other disciples of the Divine Palace were choked with sobs and couldn't make any sound. Only they knew that the Divine Palace had long been destroyed. Those were just illusions. Only the 9-headed dragon and Muri were real. Jiao Ying disguised himself as a dragon. Senior sister had paid an unknown price to restore her former appearance. She did all of this just to make Qin Hao happy. Chapter 1632. The 5-colored Emperor's net was extremely precious. It was the only thing left on Taiwei Peak, and it could help Ren Huang break through to the Emperor realm. Junior brother did not hesitate to use the Emperor's net to make senior sister smile. Senior sister would also do anything to portray a realistic scene of the Divine Palace for junior brother. For Qin Hao, the Divine Palace was fake, but she wanted the world to see it and believe it was real. The 7 divine peaks projected in the void gradually shone, leaving only the 9 divine dragons circling. On the dragon heads stood the body of a peerless empress. Qin Hao looked up and saw Muri's figure slowly descending the stairs and standing in front of him. Senior sister was like a goddess, and her appearance had really been restored. Senior sister. Qin Hao choked. Xiao Han, Xiaogua, and the others all shed tears at the same time. Just now they saw the most beautiful scene in their memory and the familiar figures. It was all too real, and they were so touched that they almost mistook it for real. Qin Hao was also in a trance for a moment. It was as if he had returned to the Divine Palace. If it weren't for the fact that his senior sister was proficient in the art of matrices and the Daozong Peak's imperial methods, which were the best of the 7 peaks, he would have been lost in the trance. A group of bridegrooms and brides, what are you crying for on your wedding day? Muri smiled gently and raised her hand to wipe away the tears on Qin Hao's cheeks. Senior sister is so beautiful. Qin Hao said. Senior sister is so beautiful. Everyone spoke at the same time. At this moment, Muri was the most beautiful and the best senior sister in the world. No, why did the 7-peak venerables send me here? Muri responded with a smile. Seeing her junior brothers and sisters move to tears, she also felt very happy. Xiao Yi, the Emperor of the Northern Frontier, greets the Supreme Divinity. We greet the Supreme Divinity. On the ceremonial stage, the emperors got up to greet her respectfully. Although they could not kneel like the common people and low-level warriors, their postures were still very humble. The divine palace does not care about the mortal world. This time, I am only here to congratulate the disciples of the divine palace. You don't have to be polite, Muri said calmly, dignified and generous. This aura she is. Sword Emperor Makamanji's heart trembled. Muri's Emperor Qi gave him a familiar feeling. She was the old woman who had come to the southern region. Miaoli seemed to have sensed that she had been seen through. Her gaze landed on Muenzong, and a Nirvana emperor's might crushed down on him, causing him to shut his mouth tightly. As expected, he could deceive the world, but he couldn't deceive these monarchs. What a powerful empress! Holy Emperor Jiang clenched his fists and felt Miao Li's will of the emperor. It was like a complete path of the emperor, one with the great path, like the origin of the great path. This power was extremely terrifying. It was not that he had not felt it before. Qin Hao's cultivation in his previous life was just like this woman's, full of suppression. No, this supreme divinity should be stronger than Dendi in the past. Only when Qin Hao held the sunset bow in his hand did he exude a sense of danger that was barely comparable to this supreme divinity. Without the sunset bow in hand, Dendi was no match for this person. Let's continue with the wedding. Don't delay the ceremony because of me. Muri said. Supreme divinity, please take a seat. Xiao Yi invited, allowing Miaoli to go first. Only then did the other monarchs follow behind, returning to their original seats. The wedding will continue. I invite the newlyweds to propose a toast to the elders. Gongsun Chongqing's voice was trembling. He was too excited. He thought back to the trip to the Fengli Temple in Jiang Kingdom. He had made a promise with Qin Hao that it would be 5 years. 5 years later, Qin Hao fulfilled the promise and won the Imperial Martial Championship, becoming Xiao Yi's son-in-law. Now, 5 years had passed. On the day of the wedding, the emperors of the 3 regions had all arrived. There was even the Supreme Martial Palace's Divine Palace to congratulate them. The scene was so shocking and magnificent that it could not be described with words. It was like an epic. This son-in-law was really a good man. At this moment, Qin Hao and the others walked to Xiao Yi, Qin Dingtian, and the other elders. Su Jin, Shou Wuk, Duan Ziju, and the others handed wine cups to the newlyweds and then filled them. Qin Hao knelt on the ground. The others also knelt. Whether they were emperors or emperors, no matter what their future achievements would be, they had to kneel in front of their birth parents. Qin Dingtian, Xiao Yi, Yilong Yuan, Emperor Wei, Old Ancestor Qin, and the other elders were all full of smiles as they looked at the juniors. They were full of kindness. The children finally had families. Father, mother, Master Dan Xian, Senior Muri, and all the elders. Without you, there would not be me, Qin Hao. Today, I toast to all of you. Qin Hao raised his wine cup to Xiao Yi. Xiao Han raised his wine cup to Qin Dingtian. Father, mother, thank you for raising me and giving me a second life. Yi Shuihan, Xiaogua, Qin Yun, and Naransu also toasted the elders in gratitude. The elders received their wine cups. Their eyes were filled with tears as they drank the wine in one gulp. These were tears of joy. Children, get up quickly. Qin Dingtian went forward and helped Xiao Han up. Xiao Yi helped Qin Hao up. Treat my daughter better. Otherwise, even if I can't beat you, I will fight you to the death. Ah! Everyone laughed. The second cup is to exchange wine cups. Husband and wife should respect each other as guests. White hair holding hands. Gongsun Chongqing shouted with tears in his eyes. The little princess finally got married to the man she loved. This old servant was happy for her. Qin Hao and Xiao Han looked at each other and smiled. Qin Hao said, "In this generation, I toast to my beloved." Me too. Xiao Han put his arm around Gongsun Chongqing's, and the two drank the wine in one gulp. The third cup is to heaven and earth. Gongsun Chongqing said. No. Qin Hao looked at Gongsun Chongqing. Everyone was stunned. The third cup is not to heaven or earth. I toast to the brothers who have gone through fire and water with me. I toast to the opponents who have given me adversity and made me work hard. I hope that in the next life you will be my Qin Hao's enemy again. Qin Hao raised his wine cup and faced Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, the old demon, Shou Wuk, Su Jin, and the others. Brothers, come, drink it up. Big brother. Master. Everyone was touched. They felt their blood boiling. They raised their cups and drank together. They hoped that in the next life, they would be enemies again. They hoped that in the next life, they would still be brothers. Pour the wine. Qin Hao stretched out his empty cup, and Su Jin quickly filled it. Qin Hao held Xiao Han's hand and walked to the edge of the stage. He looked at the people and warriors in the city and shouted, "The fourth cup is to the friends from Xiliang and the northern borderline who came from afar. Perhaps I don't know you, but you came to congratulate me. This cup is to the martial arts of Xiliang and the sects of the northern borderline." Martial arts flourish. Below, the sound waves shook the sky. Many people's blood seemed to be roaring. The Xiliang warriors were so excited that they shed tears. They knew that with Qin Hao around, Xiliang would never be looked down upon by the three regions. Wine. Qin Hao continued. Everyone looked at Qin Hao. Xiao Han held Qin Hao's hand tightly. No matter what he did, she would follow. The fifth cup is to the past, never to return. The sixth cup is to the future, a man should be strong. Qin Hao drank 2 cups in a row. Many imperial lords nodded. What a good never to return. This was a true imperial lord. After the 6th cup, Qin Hao filled the 7th cup. He walked to the Makamanji imperial lords and said, "The 7th cup is to the southern borderline." Good to the southern borderline. The imperial lords all raised their cups and drank. If the wedding was held in the southern borderline, there would be more people watching. Even if Qin Hao was not from the southern borderline, his footprints were imprinted in the sect of the southern borderline. It would not be erased in this life. Su Jin, fill it up again. Qin Hao's eyes were a little red. He faced the direction of the South Pole Star, and this cup of wine was poured on the stage. The 8th cup is to the Divine Palace. The Divine Palace. Everyone poured wine. The Divine Palace. Muri watched silently. Sand seemed to have drifted into her eyes as she read. Peak Venerables, Eastern Sky, Changyu Izue, have you all seen it? The 8th cup was over. In the sky above the martial Emperor Palace, the sound of cannon salutes continued. At this moment, the emperors seemed to have a tacit understanding. They actually soared into the sky. The emperor's light shone brightly. The 100 imperial lords and Emperor Yuan's powerhouses bloomed with their respective emperors' Dao. They turned into stars and shone down, bringing a visual shock to the people watching the ceremony. On this day, the northern Liao imperial capital shook the world. Countless people witnessed the scale of this grand wedding, and their hearts couldn't calm down for a long time. The scene of the Divine Palace appearing and the 100 emperors soaring into the sky was deeply imprinted in their minds. They would sing about it for generations to come, turning this grand scene into a legend that their descendants yearned for. Even after many generations, they believed that there would still be people who would remember this day. After the wedding banquet, many big shots of the three regions left. Sword Dharch Makamanji bid farewell to Showuk. No one knew what he said, but in short, he asked Showuk to stay by Qin Hao's side. The old demon returned to the southern region with Palace Master Yi. It was said that little Jiu was working hard to pursue and also wanted to hold a grand wedding that would attract the attention of the world. The moment Emperor Ningwu left, his face didn't look too good. Due to the wedding banquet, he didn't dare to show it. But in private, he seemed to have warned Ning Tianqing a lot. Night fell, but the capital was still lively. The enthusiasm of the people didn't fade after the wedding. Although they weren't as passionate as they were during the day, they still sang and danced for the whole night. At this moment in Seheo Hall, red candles lit up the warm and elegant room. Xiao Han lay quietly on the bed. Her face was flushed from drinking wine, and she looked extremely beautiful. Qin Hao walked to the bed and bent down beside Xiao Han. He looked at her with a smile and said softly, "It's been 12 years. Little sister, you're finally married to Big Brother." "I'm sleepy. Time to sleep." Xiao Han was shy. She pulled the quilt with her hand and looked at him with a pair of watery eyes. "Yes, it's time to sleep. Before you sleep, do you want to relive old dreams and give me a full-body massage?" Qin Hao waved his hand and took off his groom's clothes. He crawled under the quilt and hugged the beauty tightly. "Bad guy, don't touch me." Xiao Han's voice was as soft as a mosquito's. So tender. Qin Hao's palm moved up inch by inch. "Don't stop." Xiao Han couldn't stand this technique. "I can't stop anymore," Qin Hao said. Creak, creak. Soon, the bed began to shake as if two people were fighting under the quilt. Of course, such a commotion was not only happening in Seheo Hall but also in the other three palaces. Yi Shuihan and Qin Yun's movements were getting louder and louder. Strangely, there was a ghastly wail coming from Xiaogua's bridal chamber. My bride is gone." Following that, an extremely irritable green ox burst through the wall. A red cloth hung on its head as it roared at the courtyard. "I didn't really agree to marry you. I just wanted to accompany Big Sister." Nalan Li's petite body appeared in a corner of the courtyard. She smiled at the huge green ox. "We've already drunk wine and paid respects to the two elders. We're husband and wife in name." Xiaogua roared at Nalan Li. "We're husband and wife in name but not in reality. Chase me. If you catch me, I'll let hee. Don't run." Boom. Two huge ox horns knocked over the palace wall. A huge creature ran on all fours and chased after the tiny figure. Chapter 1633. Early in the morning, Qin Hao and Xiao Han washed up, dressed neatly, and went to serve tea to Xiao Yi, Qin Dingtian, and Tang Rong. After the family finished their breakfast, they sat together again. "Qin Hao, Northern Yen is in chaos," Xiao Yi said seriously. After the death of the Yen ancestor and the Yen emperor, the Murong family had internal dispute. The members of the royal family were divided into several factions. On the day of the wedding in Liaodu, a war broke out in northern Yen. The various princes led their troops to conquer each other. All of them wanted to proclaim themselves as the emperor. There were also some vassals who took advantage of the chaos to proclaim themselves as the emperor. However, no matter how the war was fought, it did not cross the border between northern Liao and northern Qi. The Murong family was in a dire situation, comparable to the Xiao family in the past. "It has nothing to do with northern Liao," Qin Hao said calmly. As long as it did not cross the border, the Murong family could fight as they pleased. Xiao Yi smiled. That was a little heartless. However, when the Xiao family was in chaos, the Murong family did not send troops to help. Now it was their turn again. Let's not talk about the small things outside the family. Let's talk about the Qin family. I'm old, and Hao just reached the emperor realm. It's time for him to take charge of the empire, Qin Shilong said kindly. Originally, He was only a temporary emperor. In reality, the Qin clan relied on Qin Hao's prestige to suppress them. Well, Qin Hao smiled faintly and said to Qin Shilong, "Grandfather, you've been emperor for so many years. Why not stay for a few more years? If you don't want to, it's fine to replace my father or fourth uncle. I'm still young and lack experience. I need to go out and train." "You want to leave again?" Qin Laosi was surprised. He could hear the hidden meaning in his words. "Yes." Qin Hao nodded. "There are some things I need to do. I can't stay for too long." "You?" Qin Laosi was unhappy. "How are you and Little Han have just gotten married, yet you're leaving so soon? Isn't that too lacking in etiquette? What a scandal!" Qin Shilong said anxiously. "Father," Qin Dingtian interrupted. Qin Dingtian interrupted him and said, "The child has grown up and has his own thoughts and responsibilities. Don't force him. When are we leaving?" 10 days later. Qin Hao replied, 10 days at most. He also wanted to stay for a while longer, but unfortunately, time waited for no one. 10 days? So fast? Xiao Yi felt a little uncomfortable. He looked at Xiao Han and asked, "What about you? Do you want to go with us?" "Naturally, we'll go together," Xiao Han replied firmly. She would go wherever Qin Hao went. A grown woman can't be kept at home. Xiao Yi sighed helplessly. He hadn't been back for long, and now he had to leave again. He couldn't accompany his elders for a few more years. "Father-in-law, don't worry. Senior sister and ancestor Slayer will follow us," Qin Hao said. Xiao Han would be safe with him. "Go, go, go." Xiao Yi waved his hand and said, "Everything is done. Come back quickly and give me a grandson. A granddaughter is fine too." Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed and Xiao Han's face turned red. During these 10 days, Qin Hao chatted with his elders about many things. He helped Xiao Yi stabilize his demonic power. During this time, he interacted with Qin Yu, the Blood Qilin, and Zhua Junqian. Due to Qin Hao's cultivation and aura, the Blood Qilin and the others were very cautious. But soon, they adapted. It was as if they had returned to 10 years ago, when everyone was playing and having fun. 10 days later, a void warship took off from the capital and headed for northern Qi's Saint Emperor Mountain. On this trip, Xiaogua and Yi Shuihan did not follow. The two were married and had their own responsibilities. Yi Shuihan was preparing to return to Luo Shui to inherit the throne. Xiaogua did not consummate his marriage with Nailanli, so he was trying his best to woo her. Chen Wanqin followed Chen Kang back to Fengli Temple. She took over her father's business and began to teach the disciples. On the Medicine Valley side, a large group of beast emperors came to pick up the dog spirit and the centaur brothers. Qin Hao naturally agreed. Although the dog spirit was unwilling, he had to go back. They had promised the old beast emperor. How could they go back on their word? The Medicine Valley had helped them a lot, providing them with a large amount of herbs and resources. On this trip to the East Continent, Qin Hao only brought Xiao Han and Shou Wa. Jiu Ying and Su Jin naturally had to follow. In addition, Senior Muri had to return to her family and the Qilin Path Mountain. Zhan Guang he had a mission to complete. The battleship passed by northern Yin. Looking down, the flames of war could be seen everywhere. A large number of cities were destroyed and countless civilians suffered. Corpses were strewn everywhere. It was a tragic sight. There were also many refugees fleeing to northern Liao and northern Qi. However, none of this had anything to do with Qin Hao. The battleship passed through the Sage Emperor Mountain and headed towards the Great Zhou Empire. It did not stop and left immediately after picking up Divine Emperor Jiang. Half a month later, they arrived at the Great Zhou Empire. Qin Hao once again smelled the air of the East Continent. "Be careful." In the sky, Qin Hao stood on the deck and said goodbye to Zhan Guang he and Divine Emperor Jiang. "Zhou Wendi will take the lead. No need to worry." Divine Emperor Jiang smiled. He was not the main force, but there was someone who was risking his life to charge forward. Don't worry, Emperor. Shen Qian will definitely die. Zhan Guang, he said domineeringly. The Xianyuan halberd in his hand shone brightly. He did not think that this was Zhou Wendi's problem. He would give his all in this battle, and make the divine firmament d'Arch regret what happened 600 years ago. Okay. Qin Hao nodded. 2 were at the true self stage and 1 was at the Dao proving stage. No matter how strong Shen Qian was, as long as he was not at the unblemished void stage, he would definitely not be able to escape. After saying goodbye to the 2, Qin Hao returned to the cabin and continued forward along the great Zhou Empire. The battleship then landed in the East Sea and began to travel along the waterway. Traveling on the Void battleship was naturally more economical than flying. In the cabin, 6 figures took their seat. Shouwuk closed his eyes and sword will circled around him. Although he did not know why he had come to the East Continent, he would listen to his uncle and follow Qin Hao. He also liked this. Only by walking side by side with strong cultivators could his sword become stronger. Su Jin was reading the music score that the Juyin Palace had presented. Although the quality of the music score was not as profound as the imperial techniques of the Yaoguang Peak, it was still unique. The 9-headed snakelet transformed into a small dragon and was sleeping in a corner. It had not completely absorbed the power of the 8-winged black dragon's bloodline and was still in the process of evolving. Senior sister, can you make a detour to Penglai? I don't want to waste time. I want to see an old friend and leave after that. At this moment, Qin Hao and Xiao Han were leaning against each other as they looked at Muri, who had transformed back into an old woman. An old friend? The one who killed the palace emperor at the Emperor Martial Arts Tournament? Xiao Han moved her head away from Qin Hao's shoulder, her eyes filled with jealousy. It turned out that there was a place in his heart that he had not completely handed over to her. Yes. Qin Hao did not avoid this and said seriously, there are too many stories in between. When the time is right, I will give you a perfect explanation. Wei Wei had sacrificed too much for him. He owed her a debt. Of course, he could not say this to Xiao Han. Moreover, his feelings for Wei Wei had indeed changed. It was not purely to repay her. Why are you so nervous? I didn't say I didn't agree. Xiao Han turned her face to the side. Could she really not care? Impossible. Seeing Xiao Han's reaction, Qin Hao could only smile awkwardly. Women. Since it's just a meeting, let's go take a look. I also want to see the celestial scenery of Penglai. The 100 islands of Penglai in the East Sea are a blessed land. Not only is the scenery beautiful, but the spiritual qi of heaven and earth is also extremely abundant. Master once said that when ancestor Wu Jun and the seniors of the Divine Palace founded the Divine Palace, they had the idea of settling in Penglai. They were afraid of being disturbed by the world, so they finally chose the South Pole. Muri looked at Qin Hao and then at Xiao Han. As a senior sister, she could only help so much. Although men were a bit scumbags, Qin Hao was her junior brother. Senior sister said that Penglai is very beautiful. There's no harm in taking a look. Xiao Han turned her face back and still stared at Qin Hao with a wronged expression. Well, since Han wants to see it, I'll take my most gentle, considerate, kind, and generous wife to see it. I swear, Penglai is indeed very beautiful. Qin Hao hugged her and kissed her face. Shameless. Xiao Han wiped the saliva on her cheeks. He obviously wanted to go, but he had to make her the reason. He was too good at finding excuses. But since Qin Hao praised her for being generous and kind, what could she say? Qin Hao laughed and drove the warship to the east along the East Sea toward Penglai. He was too familiar with the route. I don't know what the evil soul is doing. The wedding was so noisy. Will it attract Xinghua? Head Wu Kei opened his eyes, worry written all over his face. The battle of the Divine Palace was a pain in everyone's heart. The geniuses of the continent fought together, but they were scared by Shenghua and fled like a stray dog. Shame, a shame that couldn't be erased in this life. Moreover, if the evil soul were to vent its anger on Northern Liao after they left, that would be terrible. It's all because of you. Qin Hao was angry at the mention of the wedding. Whose fault was it? I didn't take the evil soul into consideration at first. I didn't think it would celebrate with you. Shou Wuck said. The brain is a good thing. Qin Hao was speechless. A genius born with the rules of the sword was so obsessed with practicing the sword. Did it lose its brain? Qin Hao's body and the evil fetus have merged. His body is now the evil soul's main target. The two of them are affected by the evil power and can sense each other to a certain extent. Don't worry, it won't attack your elders. If Shenghua comes, he can accurately find your location. Muri analyzed. Using Qin Hao's parents as hostages? Shenghua wouldn't do that. To put it bluntly, Shao Yi and Qin Hao weren't qualified. All the martial artists on the continent combined were less important than Qin Hao. No matter where the evil soul was, it could detect Qin Hao's aura. When the time came, it could directly attack him. Why would it threaten others? Muri didn't know when this day would come, but she could guarantee that Qin Hao wouldn't die, Shao Yi and the others would be fine, and the 300 disciples of the Divine Palace would be fine. Only by taking back Qin Hao's body would the evil soul consider venting its anger on Shao Yi and refining the 300 disciples of the Divine Palace. At this moment, Shou Wuck, Su Jin, Shao Han, and even the sleepy Jiao Ying opened one eye. Everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Hao. It was really dangerous. He could explode at any time. Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't know it was the body of the evil god that he had been nurturing for tens of thousands of years. Qin Hao was very angry. It was too difficult. He didn't do anything and was inexplicably targeted by the evil soul. If he wants to take back my body, will you risk your life? Qin Hao looked at Shao Han and asked. I don't know you. Shao Han continued to turn his face away, and so did the others. Heartless. Qin Hao shook his head. He was not careful in making friends. Even his wife was unreliable. Only his senior sister was the best. Once the phantasm soul comes, even I won't be able to protect you. If something bad really happens, I won't do anything that will be in vain. But don't worry, when I break through to the Nirvana realm, I will avenge you. Miaoli said sincerely. If she couldn't do it, she would run away first. Senior brothers, I miss you. Qin Hao's eyes were wet. He silently took out the Dihong silk and felt the warmth of his two senior brothers. Don't be afraid. The evil soul hasn't appeared for so long. It must have been seriously injured by the person who broke into the Divine Palace. It won't ask for your body for a while, at least not for 100 years. Muri said. The purple-robed man was very strong, and his cultivation was definitely not below hers. Although she didn't see the result of the battle, if he could really injure the evil soul, it would take at least 100 years for an unblemished Tharch to recover the evil power. During this time, Qin Hao was very safe. I love you. Shao Han turned his face back and held Qin Hao's hand tightly. Good brother, I will always be by your side. Shou Wuck walked forward and patted Qin Hao's shoulder. Roar. Jiao Ying groaned and went back to sleep. People are so realistic. Qin Hao sighed helplessly. 100 years? He wouldn't wait for death. He would return to his peak as soon as possible and take back the Sunset Divine Bow. Let's see who's afraid of who. Of course, it would be better if he broke through to the Divine Realm. He could kill Shenghua with just a breath. That scene was too wonderful for words. Chapter 1634. Of course, Qin Hao could only think about killing Shenghua in one breath. If he couldn't solve the problem of faith and perfect the laws, how could he become a god? I'm not worried about when the evil soul will recover. When we crossed the inland sea, I warned you that Shenghua might only be a clone of the evil soul, and the evil soul's true body might not be in the divine palace. Muri said worriedly, "How could an unblemished evil soul kill the 7 peaks venerables and the chiefs of the 7 peaks? Xinghua's power might not be the full strength of the evil soul." For a moment, everyone in the cabin fell silent. Obviously, Muri's guess was reasonable, but the result was too shocking and unbearable. Ahem, where is senior sister's family on this trip to the East Continent? Qin Hao asked to divert everyone's attention. Eldest senior brother was from the Qilan Taoist mountain, so he had some impression of it. As for senior sister's family, it was a bit mysterious. My family? Miaoli recalled a lot of memories in her heart. They were all things from a long time ago. She took out a flaming feather, lowered her head to look at the object in her palm, and said to everyone with a smile, "My family believes in the Phoenix God. The Phoenix bloodline flows in our clan from generation to generation. We are an ancient clan in the East Continent." The Phoenix God clan was a clan in the name of God. It could be seen how strong Miaoli's family was. Every newborn was born with a phoenix flaming feather. The flaming feather not only symbolized the identity of the Phoenix God clan, but also the body constitution of the owner through the feather. A strong warrior of the Phoenix clan would have a very hot and bright feather. On the other hand, if the feather was dim and cold, it meant that the child wouldn't live long. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they wouldn't have a good future and wouldn't be qualified to be a member of the Phoenix clan. The flaming feather in Muri's hand was very hot, like hot blood. When she was born, the entire sky of the Phoenix clan was covered in flames. It was said that the clan saw the shadow of the Phoenix God in the flames, which shocked the entire clan. Muri's parents were very proud of it, and the elders said that the child would have a great fortune in the future. It turned out that the elders of the Phoenix clan were right. So magical? Showuk said in surprise. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange race. Muri smiled. Huiyu and Master share the same life force. If Master dies, Huiyu will scatter. Conversely, if Huiyu shatters, it means that Master is no longer in this world. As for the territory of the Phoenix clan, a sudden clap of thunder broke the atmosphere. Muri's voice suddenly stopped. Her expression changed as she looked up. At this moment, she was not the only one. Qin Hao, Xiaohan, and the others also felt an incomparably vast Emperor's aura crushing down on the void battleship. This power caused one's heart to palpitate. It's him. Muri's soul trembled slightly. She had once brushed shoulders with the owner of this aura. You guys stay here. I'll be back soon. After saying that, Muri's cross-legged body disappeared into thin air, turning into a ray of dazzling Emperor light that soared into the sky, heading in the direction of the Emperor pressure. From afar, it looked like a divine bird, a phoenix, had rushed out of the battleship and flew into the boundless sky. Who is it? Su Jin tried hard to restrain himself. Under the deterrence of the Emperor pressure, his body was trembling. How would I know? He's so strong. Showuk looked up at the top of the ship. Should we go and take a look? Don't move. Wait for senior sister to come back. Qin Hao stopped him. The other party's cultivation was not inferior to senior sister's. He was at least a flawless emperor. After 600 years, the martial Tao of the East Continent had become so strong that there was a flawless emperor flying around? And from senior sister's tone, it seemed like she knew him. Could he be a member of the Phoenix clan? He was too strong. It was as if they were facing Xinghua again. They felt helpless. The situation was unclear, and no one dared to move recklessly. At this moment, the divine bird broke through the clouds and soared all the way to the highest point of the sky. In front of her, a tall figure in a tattered gray robe stood tall, as if he had been waiting for a long time to accompany Muri. The figure waved his hand and tore off his tattered gray robe, revealing a purple robe full of scratches. It was Dan Go, the Imperial Censor. No wonder the evil soul didn't chase out of the divine palace. During this time, He didn't find Qin how to take back his body. I guessed right. You won. Muri looked at the Imperial censor. He had a shawl around his shoulders, and half of the Kylan mask on his face was broken. Through the scars on his body, she could vaguely see how dangerous the battle with Shenghua was. He will never come. He's dead, the Imperial censor said. His purple robe was surrounded by lightning. His aura was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. It was very unstable. Muri was shocked. Did he kill him? She shook her head. The evil soul was dead? It was unlikely. At most, one of his doppelgangers was destroyed. But this was enough to confirm her judgment. The evil soul's strength had weakened because of the loss of his doppelgangers. That was why he was so obedient during this time. Do you want to go down and take a look? The person you are guarding should be on the ship. Is it Qin Hao? Muri asked. The Imperial censor lowered his head. Above the broken half of his mask, a pair of resolute eyes seemed to penetrate the distant void and fell on Qin Hao. He shook his head. This time, I've been guarding here for a long time. I knew he would arrive at Penglai first, but I'm not waiting for him. It really is Qin Hao. Muri exhaled deeply. This little brother's background was very complicated. She asked, if you're not waiting for him, who are you waiting for? For you. The Imperial censor suddenly raised his head. His sharp eyes were like thorns, as if piercing through Muri's emperor spirit. Your existence has affected his growth. Under the protection of the tree, the grass will never grow. You must die. Muri's heart contracted. The tyrannical, unblemished emperor will swept through the sky. The entire sky above Donghai seemed to be burned by the flames of the Great Path. Her fighting spirit soared. If I kill you, perhaps he will hate me. But it doesn't matter. One day, he will understand everything I've done. I have no regrets. The Imperial censor stepped forward. On his tattered purple robe, the Emperor light formed a terrifying thunder power. It seemed to have turned into a ball of thunder that could destroy everything in the world. From your aura, I can feel helplessness and struggle. But you're wrong about one thing. Qin Hao's growth has nothing to do with me. All I can give him is guidance on the Emperor path. As for cultivation, he has a unique self-cultivation method, and his progress is very fast. Muri said. Her unblemished flames of the way spread. The dazzling divine bird was born from the flames. It released its primordial spirit. If they were to fight, she was not afraid. Wrong? 600 years ago, I destroyed his emperor body in the battle of the Valley of the God. It was all for today. The one who was wrong is not me, but you. Only when you die can he fully understand the true meaning of the broken. Otherwise, the path he is walking now will only be the emperor path. He will never be able to break through his own limit. The Imperial censor said. 600 years. He had waited too long. Moreover, he could not wait another 600 years. For the sake of his ideals, for the sake of fulfilling the promise with Qin Hao, it did not matter how many people died, even if they were his closest relative. I understand. Muri let out a long sigh of relief. Her wrinkled old face revealed a bright smile. She really understood that this person had the same ideals as her master. He wanted to create a god. She looked down reluctantly, as if she could see her junior brother's anxious and worried face. But more than that, she saw Qin Hao's future. The shade of the tree prevented the grass from growing. To a certain extent, she had indeed limited Qin Hao's breakthrough. If her death could create a new god for the divine wilderness, she was willing. The eastern sky was also willing. Zhang, you would also be willing. I'm sorry, I have no choice. When the divine wilderness ushers in a new era, there will be a glorious statue of you. Die. The thunder of the great path roared. The violent might of the great path raged in the sky, splitting the space and annihilating all things. It was as if the tribulation of the heavenly path did not dissipate for a long time. The loud rumbling shook the heavens and the earth, and the vast waters of the East Sea tumbled endlessly. At this moment, the endless divine thunder of the great path seemed to destroy the entire world. The divine bird emperor spirit of the phoenix gradually dissipated in the thunder. A blood-like flaming feather slowly fell from the sky. With a bang, it exploded into countless pieces midway. Senior sister. Qin Hao let out a hoarse roar. The 9 palaces battle dilly opened all 8 palaces. Dragon scales covered his cheek. It was as if a violent dragon had pierced through the battleship. He turned into a beam of emperor light and shot straight into the sky. Not only him, Shou Wuk stepped on the sword Calamity Emperor Lotus, Xiao Han held the Empress Divine Crown, and Su Jin's body vibrated with the Emperor Light Sound technique. They all followed Qin Hao and rushed into the sky with all their might. However, the endless thunder of the great path fell and intertwined into a terrifying sea of thunder. It crazily radiated downward. Even far away in the sky, the aftershocks of the Imperial Censor's attacks were extremely frightening. The moment the thunder approached, everyone's blood boiled. Their bones cracked and blood spurted out. Even their spiritual souls were about to be shattered. Su Jin's Emperor Light was the first to shatter. He fell headfirst toward the East Sea. 10,000 swords, heavenly peak. Shou Wuk's sword will swept out. The Emperor Lotus under his feet spun wildly. However, before the sword matrix could form, he was swept thousands of miles away by the thunder. The crescent moon pendant flickered with a hazy halo. It seemed to sense that Xiao Han was in danger. A ball of divine light wrapped around her. In the next moment, the divine light could not bear the burden and was forcefully penetrated by the thunder. Xiao Han also disappeared from sight. Roar. The team was instantly disrupted. In this crisis, the 9-headed snakelet transformed into a giant 9-headed snake. On its thick body, sturdy black dragon scales grew. It wrapped around Qin Hao, and the 9 snake heads withdrew together. Even so, when the aftershocks of the thunder swept over, the coiled body of the giant snake instantly exploded. The 9 snake heads fell and flew in different directions. A beam of thunder condensed into a beam of light heavily bombarded Qin Hao's abdomen, crushing him. With a boom, it exploded on the void warship. At this moment, in the East Sea, a terrifying wave rose thousands of feet. Countless sea creatures died. The endless waves spread into the distance. Everywhere it passed, the water of the East Sea turned into a pool of blood. Countless tyrannical sea demon corpses floated up, all of them broken. In this way, it will arouse the endless hatred in your heart. Sometimes, hatred is also a kind of motivation. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His old injuries had flared up. The Imperial Censor's complexion was very bad. In the air, his body was somewhat unstable. He took one last look at the direction Qin Hao had disappeared in. The 100 Islands of Penglai. This was the only thing he could do. Turning around, the purple-robed figure that seemed to be on the verge of collapse disappeared from the East Continent. He would wait there for Qin Hao. Chapter 1635. His pale face was covered with dark brown demonic patterns, and his wet silver hair was draped over his forehead. The young man's purplish lips opened and closed slightly, as if he was muttering someone's name. His body was weak, and his vital energy was dispersing. The terrible power of thunder remained in his meridians, and his damaged organs were still being eroded by the power of thunder. However, he was holding something tightly in his right hand. Even though his life was so weak that it was about to disappear, he still held on to it tightly. After drifting for an unknown period of time, when Qin Hao regained consciousness, he found himself lying on a small fishing boat. In his blurred vision, he could faintly see 2 figures, one old and one young, rowing the boat. "Grandpa, he seems to have woken up." A little girl's voice was heard, and Qin Hao coughed a few times. "Give me some water." The old man put down the oars and quickly walked over to help Qin Hao sit up. Qin Hao saw the little girl untie a gourd from her waist. Weak vital energy flashed from the girl, and a ray of light went into the gourd. She pulled out the stopper and handed it to the old man. Obviously, the seemingly ordinary old man and young girl in front of him were not ordinary at all. They were cultivators, and the gourd was a spatial ritual implement. However, their cultivation was not high and they were very weak. Child, drink quickly. You are so lucky. The old man handed the gourd to Qin Hao's mouth. The girl squatted down and looked at Qin Hao curiously. She said, Shui Shui, when Grandpa and I found you, we both thought you were dead. With innocent and curious eyes, the girl looked at the young man seriously. It was hard for her to imagine that a guy who had drifted in the East Sea for so many days had not been eaten by the sea demons. When they found Qin Hao, his breath was very weak, and his body was soft as if there were no bones. Grandpa said that this person had been injured, and his injuries were very serious. It was very likely that he would not survive. However, 3 days later, not only did he not die, but his breath became stronger. Many injuries that even Grandpa could not treat were healed without medicine. It was really amazing. Thank you. With the help of the old man, Qin Hao reluctantly drank some. Then, he checked his body with the will of the emperor. His injuries were more serious than he had imagined. The power of thunder had destroyed his meridians, and his dantian had been severely damaged. He couldn't circulate his qi, and he couldn't summon the power of his 3 souls. He couldn't rely on the tranquil water to heal himself. He was lucky to be alive because his body was strong enough. Of course, if Jiao Ying had not risked his life to block the aftershock of the lightning, Qin Hao might have been even more severely injured. He had no idea how Jiao Ying was doing. Its emperor's body had been destroyed, and its 9 snake heads had been sent flying. Its situation was far worse than Qin Hao's. However, it had absorbed the blood of the black dragon and had a tenacious life force. As long as one of the snake heads was still alive, its emperor's spirit would not be extinguished. Presumably, it would not be in any life-threatening danger. Sai, calm down first. Since you've survived the ordeal, you have to live on. And keep an eye on him. The old man said a few words to Qin Hao. He was afraid that Qin Hao would take things too hard and turn around to pick up the oars. Youthful body, something terrible must have happened on the internet. Perhaps a loved one had died. The girl named and hugged her legs and squatted quietly to the side. Her curious eyes fell on Qin Hao. Qin Hao lowered his head and looked at the imperial rainbow silk wrapped around his body. There were cracks spreading, and it had completely lost the light of the emperor's weapon. One could imagine how strong the might of the wave of thunder that had pressed down from the sky was. Senior sister. His throat was choked with sobs. He had used too much strength in his right hand. The broken half of the flame feather separated his skin and flesh, and blood stained it red. Although he was bathed in hot blood, Qin Hao could not restore its original temperature and light. When the Phoenix clan is born, there will be a flame feather. When the master dies, the flame feather disperses. Otherwise, the flame feather shatters, proving that the master is no longer alive. Senior sister's words rang in his ears like yesterday. Qin Hao knew that senior sister was no longer alive. However, how could he bear it? He had just returned to the East Continent on this trip, and he had lost his most powerful support. From then on, there would be no more orthodox disciples of the Divine Palace in the world. Senior sister was his only family member on Migres Peak. Why did this happen? Who did it? This person killed senior sister, and had the cultivation to kill an unblemished great emperor with one blow. Why did he attack them? There were too many questions that Qin Hao could not figure out, let alone accept. Now, the team was separated. He did not know where Han Wuk and Su Jin were. The 9-headed snakelet emperor's body was destroyed. If he encountered the great demon of the East Sea, he would not be able to protect himself. They were originally dressed to the nines, but in an instant, they had ended up like this. There were no tears. He could not cry. Although his heart was tormented by fire, Qin Hao's soul was thoroughly cold. For a moment, he felt that there was nothing left to live for. "Uncle, you're a little handsome." The girl's words dispelled Qin Hao's thoughts of death in time. She looked at Qin Hao for a long time. At first glance, she did not think much of him. Even the dark brown lines on his face were a little scary. But the more she looked, the more attractive he was. His silver hair was like an immortal's, and his aura was evil. It was very strange. It seemed that this person was very strong. Staying by his side, even the waves of the East Sea could not overturn him. Shaoan felt a great sense of security. Not everyone can survive in the East Sea, and not everyone has the chance to be rescued. "You're very strong, aren't you? You didn't die from such heavy injuries. Since that's the case, it's time to do something meaningful." Shaoan was not old, but what she said was very reasonable. In fact, her dream was to one day fly into the sky and enter the divine path that mortal warriors called the divine path. Saints could roam the wider East Sea. How free and unfettered that would be. Qin Hao was very strong, and Shaoan envied him. "Do something meaningful," Qin Hao repeated. The extinguished fire in his heart was instantly reignited. His strong willpower supported his soul. Huiyu clenched his fiery wings even tighter. Traces of evil runes spread rapidly and covered half of his face. Shaoan, who was beside him, was shocked and retreated far away. She saw a vast aura of the great path emanating from Qin Hao's body. His silver hair danced and dried in an instant. His aura was getting stronger and stronger. The awakening power shocked Shaoan greatly. "Sage!" The old man felt the power behind him, and suddenly turned his head with a look of horror. "No, isn't this the Sage realm? A Yuan monarch? No, could he be a Yuan venerate?" Terrifying, extremely terrifying. The rising aura seemed endless until it completely exceeded the old man's horizons. Even he could not determine the cultivation level. At that moment, the old man was unaware that the ore in his hand had already fallen into the bottom of the East Sea. "Grandpa, it's so scary." Shaoan could no longer bear the overflowing yuan qi of Qin Hao. He felt as if a god was sitting in front of him and hurriedly retreated to the old man's side. The old man took in deep breaths, the fear on his face growing thicker and thicker. Could it be that his unintentional actions had saved the life of a great figure whose cultivation was exceedingly high? What if this person had evil intentions? The old man did not dare to think further. The world of cultivators was very cruel. The old man knew very well what fate they would face in the next second. If Qin Hao was merciless, he could annihilate the two of them with a single thought. "Don't be nervous, old man. You saved me. I won't hurt you." Qin Hao withdrew his emperor's will. As his consciousness awakened, he could control the tranquil water to gradually repair his damaged body. His demigod body could automatically absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to nourish himself. Furthermore, his emperor's body had fused with the evil fetus. Although the evil force could not be controlled, it was extremely tenacious and almost indestructible. Soon, his meridians were repaired. After circulating one cycle of yuan qi, Qin Hao's strength had almost recovered by half. "My lord, you are really a god." Seeing Qin Hao stand up, the old man's heart was in turmoil. He found it unbelievable. A moment ago, he was a weak man on the verge of death. The next second, he was like a living god. The power he exuded was like a towering mountain that one could only look up to. Qin Hao walked over and stretched out his palm. He reached down and a beam of light shot up from the bottom of the sea. Then, he grabbed the oar that he had thrown into the deep sea and paddled on his own. He said, "I'm not a god. You don't have to call me Lord. I'm just a little bit stronger and have seen more of the world." God? If he was a god, His senior sister would not have been in danger, and they would not have been separated. He was a useless person. The old man gradually calmed down. Seeing that the young man was kind and not evil, he completely let out a sigh of relief. Shaoan, right? 7th tier of Yuan gathering tier. How old are you? Qin Hao looked at the little girl and asked. 12, no, 13 years old. Shaoan counted with her fingers and smiled brightly at Qin Hao. 7th tier of Yuan gathering tier at 13 years old. You are much stronger than me. Qin Hao squeezed out a smile, but it was not very nice. 13 years old. The original owner of this body was probably only in the 1st tier of body tempering tier. After all, he was in the 1st tier of body tempering tier when he was reborn. The children of Donghai were indeed very talented. Grandpa taught me. My grandpa is even more powerful. He is a Yuan Zong elite. Shaoan said proudly. Shut up. The old man scolded and looked at Qin Hao with a smile. My cultivation is too low. I'm not worthy of your attention. Yuan Zong elite? Was he qualified to be called an elite in front of this young man? It's not simple at all. Without resources, at your age, most people would have died long ago at Primary Master Realm Level 1. My apologies, I misspoke. Qin Hao said. However, what he said was true. In Western Liang, he was reborn in the Qin family. What was Qin Shilong's cultivation at that time? He was only in the 8th tier of Yuan gathering tier, only 1 tier higher than Shaoan. A Yuan Zong elite could be called a king in a small country. Dan Xian was only a Yuan Zong at that time. Even King Jiang would tremble in fear if he saw him. Donghai. This was the Donghai, the most powerful of the 4 regions. Ha ha ha, sir, you are very casual, but you give off a very friendly feeling. You can say whatever you want. The old man smiled nonchalantly. May I ask where we are in Donghai? Qin Hao looked into the distance. If he guessed correctly, he was now in Penglai, but he did not know which island was in charge of it. Penglai had 1,000 islands, and 100 of them were guarded by elites. The 1,000 islands were under the jurisdiction of the 100 islands. However, the 100 islands were divided into several top forces. The Weiwei clan was one of the strongest forces back then. Sakura Island. We are now in the sea region under the protection of ancestor Han Tian. The old man said kindly. Infant Island? After recovering some energy, Qin Hao spread out his emperor's intent. As expected, he found a huge island city in the distance. It was vast and boundless, and its area was no less than Liaodu. However, the second half of the old man's sentence made Qin Hao frown. Isn't Sakura Island under the protection of the Mu clan? How did it become ancestor Han Tian's territory? Sakura Island was one of the 100 islands. 600 years ago, the North Pole Emperor guarded it. Sir, so you are also from Donghai. The old man was slightly surprised. He then sighed. That was a long time ago. I don't know what happened to you. You know nothing about the past 600 years in Donghai. I just came out of seclusion and fought with someone. Why don't you tell me in detail? Qin Hao said. No wonder. 600 years ago, Sakura Island was indeed under the protection of the Mu clan's North Pole Emperor. However, something big happened in the Donghai continent. At this point, the old man lowered his voice and said with a cautious expression, Denda died. The 4 divine generals of Daqin rebelled and murdered Dendi. Because of this, the North Pole Emperor went to the Donghai continent in anger and fell out with the Sunset Battle God. In the end, I heard that he escaped with injuries. No one knows if he is still alive or not. Even so, Sakura Island should not have fallen into the hands of the Heavenly Clan. Not only was Sakura Island like a fairyland, but the island also produced heavenly iron divine ores. It was rich in resources. Even without Mu Yue, the Mu clan was still powerful. They still had Emperor Mu. Qin Hao knew that with Uncle Mu's temper, He would never hand over Sakura Island to old ancestor Han Tian. This is another big thing. The old man continued to lower his voice. Dendu was a taboo in the Donghai continent. Anyone who was involved with him would not have a good ending. The North Pole Emperor went missing, so the Sunset Battle God went on a crusade against the Mu clan. He defeated Emperor Mu and killed several emperors of the Mu clan. After that, he imprisoned Emperor Mu at the Sunset Peak and used his body as fertilizer to nourish the medicinal herbs of the Sunset Peak. He said that if the North Pole Emperor didn't appear, he would let Emperor Mu's dilly be sucked dry and die. Tragic. Too tragic. The Sunset Battle God personally arrived, and Imperial Lord Mu was defeated. Several Emperor Yuans of the Mu clan were killed as well. From then on, the Mu clan was unable to recover from the setback. Later, the Sky Shaker clan took advantage of the situation and forcefully occupied Sakura Island. They even took over many of the Mu clan's territories. For this reason, the remaining members of the Mu clan fought another battle with the Sky Shaker clan. The outcome was obvious. After losing 2 imperial lords and several Emperor Yuans of the Mu clan was no match for the Sky Shaker clan. In order to protect their dignity, the Mu clan lost nearly 80% of their lives. After this battle, the Mu clan completely withdrew from the stage of the Donghai continent. They were reduced from a top force to a member of the Thousand Islands. Moreover, that island was extremely barren. They were often oppressed by a third-rate sect and lived a very difficult life. Chapter 1636. Crack. The ore in Qin Hao's hand broke, and the evil patterns appeared on his face again. His eyes were as sharp as a sword, and killing intent flashed. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry, I just got better and didn't control my power well." It's okay. The old man was shocked and looked at Qin Hao. "Elder, do you know which of the 1,000 islands the remaining members of the Mu clan are being ostracized?" Qin Hao asked. "North of Penglai, scorching desert stone prison," the old man said. A halo flashed in his palm, and he took out another ore. "In Jianghu it was better to be prepared." Scorching desert stone prison. Qin Hao felt a stab of pain in his heart. He knew that the island's environment was extremely bad, and it was difficult to survive. Is it a place for people to live? So what if they can't live there? No one in the 1,000 islands dares to take them in. The Mu clan will only end up worse if they go to the East continent. At least they can stay in the stone prison and drag out an ignoble existence. They have no choice. The old man also sighed helplessly. Although he didn't witness the Mu clan's heyday, he could imagine the Mu clan's glory from generations of Eastern Sea elders. However, the ending was so sad. Scorching desert stone prison. Qin Hao looked up at the sky. So ruthless? Zhan Wu really didn't give them any face. He defeated Wei Wei's father, Mu Xinhe, and imprisoned him at Sunset Peak, feeding him with the emperor's body. The Heaven-Shaking clan took advantage of the situation, seized the Mu clan's island, and drove the remaining members to the harsh, scorching desert stone prison. The hatred of the God Burial Valley, the hatred of the Mu clan and ancestor Han Tian, how are you going to pay for these 2 debts? At this moment, Qin Hao didn't show any emotion, and he wouldn't rush into the Heaven-Shaking clan's territory to shout and kill. He knew what the consequences would be. Without senior sister to rely on, the team was separated, and he couldn't do anything alone. He didn't even dare to go to Sunset Peak to question Zhan Wu because he didn't have the capital. Powerful. Returning to his peak in the shortest amount of time was what he should do. Only by returning to the martial monarch realm would he be able to compete with Zhan Wu and forefather Han Tian. The fishing boat slowly moved forward. From time to time, the old man would throw out a fishing net to catch some small fish from the eastern sea. The meat of the small and weak sea beasts was delicious and could be sold for a good price. For the weak, it was enough to do many things. However, there were also risks associated with it. Within the East Sea, there were countless sea demons. The deep sea domain was a forbidden area that even Renhuangs did not dare to set foot in. Xiao En's parents had once met with an accident and died in the mouths of powerful sea demons. This was the life of the people of the Eastern Sea. They survived under the oppression of the heavenly axiom, fought with the sea, fought with the demons, and honed a strong physique and a martial spirit. Of course, most of the time, the weak needed to rely on the protection of the top forces. Powerful forces had as many experts as there were clouds in the sky. Only those experts had the ability to suppress the storm and tame the sea demons. The Sky Shaker clan was one of the strongest forces in Penglai. Grandpa, look. What is that? Xiaoan pointed in the direction of the eastern continent. Looking in the direction she was pointing, they saw an extremely terrifying platinum current rushing over at high speed. There seemed to be several figures flying close to the surface of the sea. As they passed by, huge waves of dozens of feet high were stirred up. It was as if the eastern sea had been split in half, rolling up a huge white line of water. Hold on tight to the fishing boat. The old man witnessed this terrifying scene. The other party was heading straight for the fishing boat without any intention of bypassing it. With such a terrifying aura, could it be that they were the legendary martial monarchs who had reached the peak of the martial monarch realm? And such an expert appearing here could only be someone from the Sky Shaker clan. Unfortunately, it was too late. Their cultivation was too weak. The platinum current flew over the fishing boat in an instant, rolling up a monstrous storm. In an instant, the old man and the girl felt as if they had fallen to the bottom of a deep abyss. The scene was like the end of the world. Endless seawater crashed down on the fishing boat like a huge mountain, dragging the fishing boat to the bottom of the sea. The strong water pressure was suffocating. The old man screamed crazily, desperately releasing his Yuan zone cultivation in an attempt to protect his granddaughter. However, the chaotic current of the Emperor Light was like a sharp blade, easily cutting through his earth energy and soaking into his old body. At this moment, the old man felt as if he was being torn apart by thousands of sword chi. Buzz. In the midst of the crisis, a blood-red demonic flame was born in the huge waves, emitting a terrifying and awe-inspiring demonic aura. However, this flame that was filled with a sense of destruction brought an indescribable warmth to the grandfather and granddaughter. Being in the flame and witnessing the terrifying outside world, they calmed down for a moment. The demonic flame wrapped around the fishing boat and slowly rose to the surface of the sea. No matter how strong the waves were, the fishing boat did not fall. It only slowly disappeared when it was out of the water. It was like a dream. Lord, you are really a god sent by the Eastern Sea to save us. After a long while, the old man came back to his senses and knelt before Qin Hao. He was so touched that he kowtowed and shed tears. He knew that it was the young man beside him who had saved him and his granddaughter from the Sky Shaker race. Old man, please stand up. I have said that I am not a god. You saved me first, and I acted. Everything has a cause and effect. Qin Hao pulled the old man up with one hand. Xiaoan stood there in a daze, not even able to react to the crisis. You are really a kind and benevolent expert. It is my and Xiao En's fortune to have met you. The old man wiped his tears and said, if it was not for Qin Hao, they would have been buried in the sea. He was old, and it was not a pity to die. Xiaoan was only 13 years old. Who were those people just now? Qin Hao looked into the distance. The gold-colored Emperor Light gradually disappeared. How could they act so recklessly in the Eastern Sea, not caring about the lives of the weak? The little demon king of the Sky Shaker race, Feng Ye. The old man's face was filled with anger. Such ostentatious and arrogant behavior was undoubtedly Feng Ye. Isn't the Sky Shaker race the protector of the Sakura Island Sea region? Qin Hao asked curiously. Why would they act like this and not care about the lives of the people? God, you may not know, but Fang Ye is young, but his status in the Sky Shaker race is very high. He is the son of Emperor Tsang Yao, the great-grandson of old ancestor Han Tian, and the direct descendant of the Shaker race. He has always been arrogant and does whatever he wants. He does not care about the lives of the weak. There is a saying in the Eastern Sea that the fishermen of Penglai are afraid of the sea demons, and the sea demons are afraid of Fang Ye. The old man's face was filled with grief and despair. Emperor Tsang Yao was the current crown prince of the Sky Shaker race, and the next Emperor Han Tian. His son was equivalent to the little overlord of the Eastern Sea. Who dared to touch him? Fang Ye was unscrupulous. Countless innocent people died in his hands every year. Even though the martial artists of Penglai hated him, they did not dare to say anything. They could only grit their teeth and bear with it. Who would have thought that the two of them would encounter such a calamity today? What bad luck! The great-grandson of old ancestor Han Tian, the grandson of Emperor Han Tian, the son of Emperor Tsang Yao. Qin Hao counted these names. No matter which one it was enough to make the fishermen of the Eastern Sea turn pale. His status was indeed extraordinary. He was protected by Emperor Yuan whenever he went out. No wonder. Old ancestor Han Tian's birthday is coming soon. This Fang Ye must have gone to the East Continent to bring a congratulatory gift. I heard that he wanted to ask for a longevity fruit from the Sunset Peak for old ancestor Han Tian. Now, it seems that he got it from the Sunset Battle God. No wonder he was so excited. The old man cursed fiercely. Longevity fruit? Qin Hao frowned slightly. Old ancestor Han Tian is not worthy of eating it. Isn't that so? The Sunset Peak is the divine peak of the East Continent. The medicinal herbs planted there were all raised by Dendi. The people of the Sky Shaker race are really not worthy. Spit. The old man spat in the direction where Fang Ye left. Dendi was such a great emperor. He was recognized as the supreme emperor of the Eight Desolate. He could be said to be the common ruler of the East Continent. He stood tall and made the four regions submit to him. Although Dendi was dead, the countless rare medicinal herbs he cultivated were still growing in the Sunset Peak. Countless martial artists yearned for them. If they were lucky enough to get one, their ancestors would be so happy that they would climb out of their coffins. Moreover, it had a unique collection value. The Sky Shaker race took advantage of the chaos to rob the Mu clan and acted recklessly in the Eastern Sea. What qualifications did they have to eat the medicinal herbs cultivated by Dendi? Old ancestor Han Tian should die early. Where is he? The old man looked up. Qin Hao was actually gone. When did he leave? He went there. Shaoan raised her arm and pointed in the direction where Fang Ye left. She meant that Qin Hao had chased after him. Uncle Pretty also left this. In Shaoan's other hand there were two small white bottles. They were filled with medicinal pills. They were all personally refined by Qin Hao. The grade of the medicinal pills was not high. He had refined a lot when he was at the Luoshui Academy, but he did not use them all. Now, he gave some to Shaoan. It was not a lot, but it was enough for her to enter the Saint Realm in the future. Of course, the old man naturally did not know that the Dendi he was talking about was the young man just now. He also did not know that the medicinal herbs of Dendi that he yearned for were actually in Xiaoxin's hands. Moreover, it was refined into a perfect product. The will of the emperor radiated, and the surrounding sea region appeared clearly in his divine sense. Qin Hao chased after Di Guang in front of him. The son of Emperor Tsang Yao, the great-great-grandson of old ancestor Han Tian, Fang Ye? He had actually been caught by him. Good. Taking advantage of old ancestor Han Tian's birthday, he would give him a big gift. Although he couldn't touch old ancestor Han Tian at the moment, it was easy to kill his great-great-grandson. Soon, Qin Hao caught up. After stepping into the Emperor realm, the advantage of the heaven-grade high-rank movement technique, water-wind divine steps, gradually came into play. He took a step forward and blocked in front of Di Guang. The latter suddenly shone brightly and stopped temporarily. Immediately, 5 figures appeared in front of Qin Hao. "Who are you, and why are you blocking the path of young Master Fangya?" A shirtless brave man stepped forward, holding a steel fork in his hand, protecting in front of a young man who looked to be in his early 20s. On the left and right of the young man, there were also 3 figures with powerful auras, but to Qin Hao they were just a low-level Yuan emperor and 3 human sovereigns. Qin Hao shook his head. "It seems that even the heavens want you dead. Who are you?" The face of the brave man holding the harpoon changed wildly. Qin Hao's tone was unfriendly. Moreover, he caught up from behind in an instant. His cultivation was obviously higher than his. "Dead? You?" Fangya laughed. "Forget it, I don't have time to care about you. You want to attract my attention so that you can hug my thigh and join the Sky Shaker clan? Come, give him some money and let him leave." In Fangya's opinion, Qin Hao was most likely an itinerant cultivator who wanted to join the Sky Shaker clan. However, this person seemed to have an extraordinary cultivation, so he didn't want to speak too harshly. If not, he would just kill him directly. He had never wasted his breath on others. Whoosh! As Fangya finished speaking, a Renhuang cultivator with a mole on his nose beside him casually took out a storage ring and threw it into Qin Hao's arms. He said coldly, "Take it and get lost." Chapter 1637. Take it and get lost. Even though the Renhuang knew that his opponent's cultivation level was higher than his, he still did not show any respect. Instead, his actions were full of arrogance and pride. This was the Sky Shaker clan. Even the servants felt that they were superior. Qin Hao had a cold smile on his face. He did not take it. He ignored the storage ring that hit his body and fell into the sea again. The Emperor's light was suddenly released from his body. Platinum vital chi swirled around him. Terrifying rules and emperors will swept out. An invisible force instantly sealed the sea region. "Protect young Master Fang!" the man with the steel fork roared. He stabbed forward with the steel fork in his hand. Rules and emperors will gathered into a dazzling light. The sea water surged, and several giant green whales appeared in the void. They let out a dizzying and dull whale roar. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, the 3 Renhuangs beside Fangya took out their family's keepsakes and quickly injected their vital chi into them. They formed 3 dazzling streams of light that shot into the sky and exploded into a beautiful pattern in the sky. This was a distress signal, and the family's elite warriors who were guarding Infant Island would arrive soon. Even they had realized that this silver-haired warrior who had blocked them out of nowhere was not joking. The sharp steel fork was wrapped in the light of Emperor's will. Rules suppressed spiritual souls. When the man attacked, it was like a majestic sea. Qin Hao felt that he was fighting the entire East Sea. However, this person's cultivation level was too low. He was only a second-tier emperor. His will of emperor could not shake Qin Hao's emperor's spirit. The red lotus demonic flame burned brightly. Qin Hao's body turned into a flame of the great path. He reached out his hand and grabbed the steel fork. The emperor's light that wrapped around the steel fork shattered under his palm. The bloody flames swept forward and burned the steel fork into nothingness. So powerful! The man was shocked. As a member of the Sky Shaker clan, it was impossible for Emperor Yuan, who was at the same cultivation level, to disperse his emperor's light. Moreover, he was not affected by the whale roar. This person's cultivation level was obviously far above his. "One move and I'll let you die." Qin Hao did not stop there. His palm wrapped in demonic flames moved forward and slammed into the burly man's chest. With a loud bang, the burly man's imperial body burst into flames. He felt as if he had fallen into the 9 layers of purgatory, and the world before him turned into a sea of fire. The terrifying might of the way of the flames incinerated his body and swallowed his spiritual soul. He had no chance to resist. He only had time to spit out a word before he turned into ashes and dissipated. Run! It was a simple word, but it brought fear to the people behind him. A heaven-shaking race branch Emperor Realm Stage 2 was killed in one palm. The silver-haired warrior's cultivation exceeded his expectations. Without any time to think, the three Renhuangs subconsciously grabbed Fong and fled. They tore the space apart and fled in three different directions. As long as one of them escaped successfully, they could bring the news to Great Emperor Song Yao and make him pay a painful price. At this moment, the space shook violently. Three auras were hidden in it, trying to escape quickly. What made them despair was that the next second, they seemed to have hit a thick wall of air. The three of them were forced to retreat at the same time, revealing their true bodies. One of them was still holding Fong, who was so scared that his face turned pale. They could not escape. The will of the Emperor sealed the sea. They had no way to escape. Let's fight. The three Renhuangs glanced at Fong. They understood that Fong was the opponent's target. However, the great-great-grandson of great ancestor Han Tian had died here. If they did not protect him well, they would not be able to survive. Their families would also be implicated. There was no way out. They could only fight. Three beams of Renhuang light whizzed toward Qin Hao. The Emperor's fire of proving way rolled and roared. When Qin Hao raised his hand, the three beams of light that were rushing toward him were annihilated midway. Renhuangs were not qualified to challenge the Emperor realm. Do you know who I am? If I die, you definitely won't be able to live either. Your family, your sect, and all your friends will all be buried with me. Let me go, and you can have whatever you want. Women, techniques, money, I will give you all. Creak. A flaming palm grabbed his throat. Fong Yu was so scared that his eyes rolled up. The voice in his mouth stopped abruptly. His legs bounced a few times in the air, and he completely stopped struggling. At the same time, a peach-shaped fruit fell into the sea from his arms. On the fruit there were festive ribbons and a big longevity character. Son of Emperor Song Yao, grandson of Great Emperor Han Tian, great-great-great-grandson of Great Ancestor Han Tian. Qin Hao sneered contemptuously. He released his palm, and Fong Yu's corpse automatically burst into flames and dissipated with the wind. Until the moment of his death, he probably still couldn't understand why the silver-haired martial artist killed him. How could he kill him? How could he dare to kill him? Unfortunately, he, the little overlord of the East Sea, was killed by this person without knowing why. Looking down, as soon as his gaze fell on the longevity fruit, the falling fruit flashed and appeared in Qin Hao's hand. He raised his hand and took a bite. Sweet and delicious. It had been more than 700 years since the day the longevity tree on Sunset Peak was planted. The fruit was at least 400 years old. It was called the longevity fruit, but in reality, it didn't have much effect on Emperor Yuan. As for Great Ancestor Han Tian's cultivation, it would be a waste to eat it. It was better to give it to Qin Hao. But this longevity fruit was stained with human blood. Wei Wei's father, the supreme imperial lord of the Mu clan, a powerhouse of the true self Great Emperor, nourished the entire Sunset Peak with his dilly. The wind calmed down, and the air was filled with a faint smell of blood. The power that shrouded this area disappeared, and the figure of the silver-haired young man was nowhere to be seen. Almost a second after Qin Hao left, a terrifying vibration appeared in the space. An incomparably dazzling imperial figure suddenly appeared. Similarly, his white hair draped over his shoulders. That pair of indifferent and emotionless eyes scanned everything around him. Although his face was expressionless, there was a monstrous anger in the depths of this person's eyes that seemed to be able to fill the water of the East Sea. It's here. Beside him, several imperial lights appeared. A powerhouse, Emperor Yuan, stretched out his hands with a ribbon in his palm, respectfully holding it in front of Emperor Tsang Yao. The surrounding space was silent. No one said anything. They seemed to know very well that great ancestor Han Tian's great-great-grandson had died here. At the same time, a clan member, Emperor Yuan, was also killed. Seal off the surrounding 100 islands and arrest any suspicious people. I want to personally interrogate them one by one. If anyone resists, kill them on the spot. In addition, pay close attention to the movements of the Shuo clan. Emperor Tsang Yao's cold eyes stared in a certain direction in the East Sea. The great ancestor's birthday celebration was imminent. Taking advantage of the family's laxness, Fang Ye met with an accident. The Shuo clan definitely had something to do with this matter. East Sea Penglai, located in the east of the East Continent, adjacent to the East Wa Islands. The entire territory of Penglai was mysterious and beautiful. Clouds covered the sky, and it was as beautiful as a fairy fantasy. There were no less than tens of thousands of islands surrounding Penglai, and there were thousands of islands with famous sect forces. These 1,000 islands were under the jurisdiction of 100 islands. Above the 100 islands, Sanxian Mountain dominated a region. Sanxian Mountain did not only represent 3 famous mountains. At the same time, it also represented 3 overlord forces: the Mu clan, the Shuo clan, and the sky-shaking Ma clan. Now, the Mu clan had declined, and 2 of the Sanxian Mountain had fallen into the hands of the sky-shaking Ma clan. In the East Sea, the only family that had the ability to contend with them was the Penglai Shuo clan. At this moment, Qin Hao followed the old man's instructions and went all the way to the scorching desert stone prison in the north of the East Sea. 3 days later, he arrived at the Mu clan's habitat. Fang Ye's status was extremely high. He was the great-great-grandson of old ancestor Han Tian. His death would definitely cause a huge commotion. Under normal circumstances, Qin Hao would only need half a day to arrive at the stone prison. However, to avoid attracting attention, he had to be extra careful and hide his cultivation. The stone prison is up ahead. There was no need to disguise himself. After Qin Hao's rebirth, his appearance was very different from his previous life. Without observing by temperament, no one could imagine that he was a martial artist in his 30s. He was the Emperor of Daqin, whose name shook the East Continent in the past. If someone dared to say so, it would make the martial artists of the East Continent laugh their heads off. In the Penglai deity region, the 1,000 islands were beautiful beyond imagination. Only the scorching desert stone prison was a barren island. There was almost no grass growing on it. As far as the eye could see, it was a dry desert landscape. Moreover, volcanic lava often erupted there. This island seemed to have been abandoned by the people of the East Sea. Powerful martial artists disdained to settle on this island. Martial artists with low cultivation could not withstand the harsh climate. The power of the volcanic lava on the island was enough to kill a mortal Saint Realm martial artist. Almost no one in the vast Penglai was willing to live here. Only the declining Mu clan. He hadn't even ascended the island when the scorching aura assaulted his face, and it was mixed with the smell of wind and sand. From time to time, he could even see lava spraying into the sky from the island from afar. This environment was even worse than the remote areas of western Liang, and even Qin Hao, who'd experienced countless hardships in this lifetime, couldn't help but feel a sense of resistance in his heart. If it were him, he would never survive in this environment. However, because of this, it was somewhat suitable for the people of the Mu clan. The people of the Weiwei family all had a pair of skillful hands. They were the most famous craftsmen in the East Sea. Her father was the strongest king refiner in Penglai. Not only in the East Sea, but in the entire East Continent, no one would dare to say that Mu Xinzhao's forging skills were the second best. The stone prison's environment was harsh. Volcanoes often erupted. The crystals after the lava solidified were very suitable for forging tools. The Mu clan began forging. The power of the bloodline was high temperature, so they were not afraid of lava. Therefore, this island that was spurned by the people of the East Sea became a pure land for the Mu clan. Ding, ding, ding. When the sound of hammering spread from the edge of the island, the sound was powerful, and the sound was deafening. It could be seen that the hammering was powerful. Qin Hao quietly landed on the island. Raising his head, he saw countless rough stone castles lined up along the coastline. The layout was uneven. A large number of people wearing primitive clothes were standing next to the furnaces, hammering the utensils. Many of them were so tired that they were sweating, but they didn't know how to rest. It was obvious that the people of the Weiwei family lived very poorly. "Hey, the things that our shark clan asked for last month, haven't you made them yet?" At this time, a large ship docked on the shore. A group of people came down and rushed to the front of the tallest stone castle. They looked like the leader of a group of gangsters. They pointed at a middle-aged man of the Mu clan and yelled, 3,000 sets are too many. It will take a month to complete. My clan is too busy." The middle-aged man from the Mu clan replied in a low voice. He didn't even look at the thugs. His majestic body stood straight. His strong arm swung the hammer and smashed it down with all his might, splashing out a cluster of sparks. 1 month is too short. The Mu clan is really a group of trash. The gangster crossed his arms and curled his lips. His eyes were full of disdain and sarcasm. "Qinggao, the materials you gave us were not enough. We paid for it ourselves. It takes a lot of time to refine the volcanic rock crystal. My big brother did not lie to you. We are not enough." Next to him, another middle-aged man of the Mu clan came over and glared at the gangster who spoke. Chapter 1638. Lava fire crystals should be included in the materials used to forge weapons. What do you mean by not enough? Otherwise, why would the Sharks gang rent this rich rock prison island to trash from the Mu clan? The thug named Qinggao rebuked loudly. He glanced at the men from the Mu clan who were gradually gathering around him and sighed hypocritically. "Forget it, I won't argue with you. The Mu clan was once glorious. When Lord Xinzhao was still alive, he hammered down no less than dozens of arch weapons. Now, you guys have actually fallen to the point where you can't even forge 3,000 sacred weapons. You've disgraced the old lord, but you guys are also quite pitiful." These words evoked great pain in the hearts of the Mu clansmen. Pairs of resolute eyes, in the blink of an eye, became depressed and full of decadence. When the old lord was still alive, the clan had been glorious. Not to mention 3,000 sacred weapons, 30,000 king-grade weapons could be completed in 3 days. At that time, the clan had been huge, and the number of people in the clan alone had been no less than tens of thousands. Since the old lord's defeat, the clan's experts had been slaughtered. Later, in order to protect the clan's foundation, they had forcibly fought the Skyshaker clan, causing the Mu clan to suffer great losses. Now, they didn't even have a Yuan venerate, let alone a human ruler powerhouse. The once prosperous Mu clan only had 5,000 people left. More than 3,000 of them were old, weak, sick, and disabled. Enough. Rubbing salt on the Mu clan's scars won't bring you any glory. My brothers and I have worked tirelessly for 800 sets of sacred weapons. This is already the limit of our physical strength. Take them all away. The tall middle-aged man stopped moving. He threw away the heavy hammer in his hand and turned to face Qinggao. Half of his face had lost skin and flesh, and terrifying scabs were twisted together. His pair of eyes, which should have been extraordinarily brave, had lost their original arrogance, leaving only hardships and endurance. "Humph, only 800 sets. Trash." With a wave of Qinggao's hand, rays of light flew out of his storage ring and landed on the ground, turning into inferior wooden boxes. A rancid smell wafted out of them. There weren't many of them, only 100 or so. 100 boxes of food and 10 boxes of mysterious crystals. I'll give you 2 more months. Come again next time. If you can't satisfy me, you can just wait to starve to death. Qingao pointed to the stone castle behind the middle-aged man and ordered, "Men, go in and take the things away." "Hold on." The man next to the middle-aged man opened his arms to stop Qingao's subordinates. His eyes fell on the boxes that were emitting a moldy smell. He said with grief and indignation, "You want to take away the 800 sets of divine weapons that we spent so much effort to create with just 100 boxes of moldy food and 10 boxes of low-grade Xian crystals? What? Do you think I gave you too much? Come on, take away another 5 boxes of mysterious crystals." Qinggao was indifferent and emotionless. A few people walked out from beside him. Half of the 10 boxes of Xian crystals were immediately collected. "Qinggao, that's too much." The middle-aged man, whose face was half ruined, had a trace of anger in his weathered eyes. "Yo, your temper has grown. You dare to yell at me? Do you want me to invite the masters of the Gui clan over so you can yell at them too?" Qinggao sneered. "A group of defeated soldiers, only daring to be fierce to us, the weaker group. I didn't see you running to the Gui's territory to be so arrogant. Are you not convinced? The 10 boxes of Xian crystals were given by the Grand Master. Wasn't it tiring for me to deliver them all the way here? Don't my subordinates need to eat? If you don't want to, fine. I'll leave all 800 divine implements here. You won't get a single grain of rice. Come on, take away all the mysterious crystals. Take the divine implements and get out." The middle-aged man with the disfigured face roared. He waved his thick arms, and a stream of saint power rolled up the weapons in the stone castle. With a series of clanking sounds, they all fell to the bottom of Qinggao's feet. "Big brother." The man next to him was so heartbroken that he was about to bleed. He held back the tears in his eyes. 800 sets of divine implement. If it were in the past, one of them could be sold for tens of thousands of Xian crystals. Moreover, the weapons forged by the Mu clan's craftsmen had always been in high demand, and the price was even higher. Who could have imagined that one day, they would need to exchange 800 sets of divine implements for 100 boxes of rotten and moldy food and 5 boxes of mysterious crystals? "The children need to grow up," the middle-aged man with the disfigured face said. The Mu clan was not as good as before, but he hoped that they would not be destroyed because of this. As long as they were alive, as long as they could move their fingers, he would try his best to let his descendants grow up. Otherwise, the Mu clan would be completely finished. Sigh. The man stomped his feet fiercely. He picked up a box and moved it into the stone castle. The rest of the clansmen did the same. The middle-aged man was right. It didn't matter how hard and tired they were. In any case, they could not cut off the children's cultivation resources. 5 boxes of mysterious crystals did not seem to be much, but they were indispensable tools for the Mu clan's youth. However, how long could they, the adults, live like this? The Mu clan had a large appetite. They had been in physical exhaustion for a long time, and the mysterious crystals they exchanged could not be used to restore vitality. They were all given to the children to cultivate. The adults could only eat moldy and rotten food and absorb the insignificant spiritual energy. He really did not know how long this body could last. Qinggao of the Sharks clan watched the Mu clan's youth carry the boxes into the stone castle like a group of ants. He spat on the ground in disgust. Then, he put away the 800 sets of divine implements, turned around and returned to the big ship. He took his men and sailed directly into the distance. He did not want to stay in a broken place like the stone prison for a moment. In the dark, Qinghao looked at the big ship that was gradually moving away. The Sharks clan? He noted it down. "Big brother, if we go on like this, we will tire ourselves out first." After moving the things, the man began to complain to the middle-aged man with the disfigured face. The middle-aged man patted the man on the shoulder and said, "Bear with it. It will get better. Next month, you don't have to forge weapons. Go to the nearby sea and catch some sea beasts. 100 boxes of food is not enough." "This okay?" The man nodded. He really did not want to tell him that in fact, there were no sea monsters in the nearby sea for a long time. The environment of the stone prison was so bad that even the sea monsters avoided this island. If they wanted to get sea beast meat, they could only go deeper into the sea. It was just that this trip was unpredictable. He did not know if he could come back alive, but he could not tell his big brother the situation. Why did the Mu clan end up like this? Oh God! One of them finally could not help but raise his hands and cry to the sky. The Mu clan of the East Sea was an overlord-level force in Penglai. It was one of the 3 immortal mountains. No one in the East Sea disrespected it. Even the hundreds of countries in the East continent yearned for it. However, in one night, with the fall of Dendi, the Mu clan, the overlord of the East Sea, also fell. It's all the Qin Emperor's fault. If it weren't for him, Ancestor Yue would not have gone to the Sunset Battle God to settle the score. The old emperor would not have been captured and imprisoned. It's the Qin Emperor who harmed our entire clan. Before the man could finish his words, the middle-aged man with the disfigured face slapped him heavily. The powerful force sent the man tumbling more than 10 feet away. He rolled until he was covered in dust. Remember the taste of this slap, because next time you will never feel it again. At this moment, the middle-aged man's eyes were extremely sharp. Only after Qing Gao left could one see his valiant fighting spirit. Dendi was a burden to the Mu clan. He naturally knew this in his heart. Everyone in the East continent knew this too. However, that was the matter of the seniors. It was not up to them to criticize, and they had no right to criticize Dendi and Empress Ziwei. Tap, tap, tap. The unfamiliar sound of footsteps came from afar. The middle-aged man with the disfigured face suddenly looked up and saw an extremely different figure in the distance. Chapter 1639. Baidu. Search. Li_cat_small_talk_net. You can see the full text content to www. Lima OXs. Koem Chapter 1639. Mysterious man. News of Vivian. Silver hair draped over his shoulders, fluttering rhythmically as his footsteps landed. Above the emotionless facial features, there was a pair of eyes so deep that it was difficult to see through. The well-proportioned and tall body clearly did not emit a strong aura, just like an ordinary person, but it brought a suffocating pressure. Danger. Extremely dangerous. The innate vigilance of the Mu clan warriors told the middle-aged man that this person was definitely an extremely cold person, and his cultivation was unfathomable. Who is in charge here? Qin Hao asked flatly. His cold eyes swept around, and finally fixed on the middle-aged man with a disfigured face. Who are you? The middle-aged man with a disfigured face asked, his spirit highly tense. Tell me, who is in charge? Qin Hao asked again. After this, the middle-aged man felt that the temperature of the whole island seemed to be dropping. His throat was dry, he swallowed and said, I am the patriarch. Whatever you want, as long as the Mu clan can do it, we can do it for you. If you need crystals, you can take them all away. The middle-aged man pointed to the 5 boxes of crystals on the ground that had not yet been moved into the stone castle, his face trembling. For a person like the silver-haired young man, low-grade crystals should not be in his eyes. However, his words made the hearts of all the men of the Mu clan tighten. Everyone's face showed great humiliation. You have to pay the price for lying. Qin Hao chuckled and shook his head. Here, you are not the patriarch. You worry too much, I am the patriarch. The middle-aged man with a disfigured face changed slightly, as if the hidden treasure was discovered. He hurriedly answered. Boom. The whole scorching desert stone island began to shake. The terrible wind blew everywhere. Accompanied by a strong vitality raging around the young man, cracks appeared on the stone castles of a large number of residents on the coastline. It was as if a terrible giant palm reached into the bottom of the sea, holding the cornerstone and shaking it wildly. "What do you want to do? You can make any request, please stop." The middle-aged man was shocked. Still not telling the truth? Qin Hao stomped heavily on the ground, and the primordial qi in his body rose again. The island shook even more violently, and the primordial qi raged, splitting the ground out of thin air. It was as if countless extended tentacles were crawling everywhere, scaring the Mu clan youths into tears. Many elders were horrified to see that the volcano in the middle of the island was emitting large amounts of fiery gas. It was as if in the next moment, the silver-haired youth's yuan qi would cause it to spew out surging magma. Chaos. The Mu clan's hearts were in chaos. Almost every time the volcano erupted, it was like experiencing a catastrophe for them. The weapons they painstakingly forged and the food they hoarded would all be submerged by the lava. What's more, this time it was a man-made volcano. It was completely conceivable that the destructive power of the eruption would be stronger than ever before. "I've lived long enough." A loud roar was heard, as if it had been suppressed for too long. The man beside the middle-aged man with the disfigured face radiated a strong holy light. Orange flames wrapped around his body. He raised his fist like a madman and punched at Qin Hao's head. "No." The middle-aged man with the disfigured face turned pale with fright, but it was too late to stop him. Qin Hao raised his eyes and looked at the man who attacked. He was in the 7th level of the Heaven Saint realm. Other than the middle-aged man, he should be the strongest warrior in the Mu clan. At this time, Qin Hao's heart ached, but he had to suppress the other party. The will of the Great Path swept forward, and an invisible force crushed the man's body, blasting him to the ground. Then, Qin Hao slowly raised his right hand. In the air, a huge transparent palm print also appeared and slammed down on the man who had fallen to the ground. Bang! There was a heavy sound, and everyone held their breath. Sweat flowed down their cheeks as they looked at the place where the palm print had fallen. The man didn't die. At this moment, an old man appeared in front of him. The old man had no legs, but he was blooming with the golden flames of the Run Huang level. He used only his primordial qi to disperse Qin Hao's attack. "Although the Mu clan has declined, we will not tolerate such bullying. If you insist on fighting, I, the old man, will let you experience the power of the Mu clan even if I have to fight to the death. I will leave you with an unforgettable memory," the old man said. His weathered face seemed to contain many memories of the past. "Elder! Grandpa Elder!" At this moment, all the members of the Mu clan rushed to the old man's side. The children and women all forgot their identities. They surrounded the old man and protected him. He was the only elder of the Mu clan. He had witnessed the old emperor being taken away by the Sunset Warlord and experienced the bloody battle with the Skyshaking clan. So far, he was the only remaining support of the Mu clan. His death would also announce the complete extinction of the Mu clan. Qin Hao looked at the old man. His sovereign spirit felt like it was being pricked by needles. He suppressed his emotions and asked, "Where is Mu Yue?" With a swoosh, the old man's expression changed drastically. His pupils dilated, but he immediately recovered. He said lightly, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Mu Yue, Empress Ziwei, the daughter of the old emperor, had disappeared 600 years ago. No matter who came here, they would only get one answer. Even if he died, he wouldn't say half a word. Qin Hao felt helpless. It seemed that if he didn't reveal his identity, he wouldn't be able to force the old man to reveal Mu Yue's whereabouts. Looking at the old man, Qin Hao's mouth opened slightly. He transmitted a message into the old man's mind. Ancient and mysterious, the pill shakes the world. Under the sunset arrow, there is no emperor in the world. Boom. The old man's expression suddenly changed again. He felt the lightning blast into his consciousness. His crippled body couldn't help but tremble. Heavy breaths came out of his mouth. He took a few deep breaths in a row to restrain himself. Looking at Qin Hao again, the old man said, "Please come with me." After that, the old man and Qin Hao disappeared at the same time. "What's going on?" The man who was slapped down had a puzzled look on his face. All the Mu clan members also didn't know what Qin Hao had transmitted to the old man. But in short, the other party shouldn't be an enemy. It'll be fine. Everything will be fine. The disfigured middle-aged man took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. He didn't know what Qin Hao's identity was, but he must be a friend of the Mu clan to be welcomed by the old man. In the center of the burning desert island, a boundless volcano was emitting terrifying heat. Looking down, one could see the terrifying magma rolling below. It was as if it could refine people in an instant. However, inside the volcano there was also a stone castle. It was larger than all the stone castles outside. No matter how the magma raged, it couldn't get close. At this time, Qin Hao and the old man came to the stone castle. "Who are you?" The moment he stepped in, the old man turned around and looked at Qin Hao. His turbid eyes revealed a bright light, as if he wanted to see through the silver-haired youth's soul. However, no matter how many people he remembered and how many past events he had never seen this person's appearance. "Qin Hao," replied Qin Hao calmly. Space was still. Time seemed to be frozen here. The surging magma outside the stone castle also subsided quietly. It was as if the volcano was shocked by the name uttered by the young man. Even though the old man had experienced many hardships and witnessed the Mu clan's prosperity and decline, when he heard this name, it was still hard to imagine. He didn't even dare to believe it. He even seemed to have forgotten himself. He stood there stupidly with his mouth open. He didn't move for a long time, as if he was dead. "I know Wei Wei came back. Her breath remains here. I won't be mistaken," said Qin Hao. Plop! The old man's crippled body lay on the ground, trembling violently. In his red eyes, 2 streams of tears couldn't help flowing down. He said in a solemn and sacred voice, "Mu clan, Mu Fenghai, greets the Qin Emperor." There was no mistake. With Denda's title as the Emperor, there was no other person in the world who could call Empress Ziwei by her nickname and discover the breath left by ancestor Yue. The silver-haired youth was the supreme Dendi who once shocked the 8 desolates and 4 regions. The Qin Emperor. Qin Hao sneered self-mockingly. "There is no Qin Emperor. Get up and tell me, where is Wei Wei?" "Emperor, you are you. As long as you are here, the Daqin is here. Without you, the Daqin is just an empty shell that has lost its soul. When ancestor Yue returned, she said that one day, you will definitely come here. I didn't believe it at first, but now I do. The grievances and hatred of the Mu clan for 600 years were not in vain." Mu Fenghai was so excited that he couldn't extricate himself. His heart felt as if it had eaten an iron mountain. No matter how big the storm in the East Sea was, he wouldn't be afraid. He wouldn't even frown. He was very clear and firmly believed that as long as Qin Hao was here, the Mu clan would be able to pay back the grievances. Chapter 1640. Baidu. Search. li_cat_small_talk_net. You can see the full text content to www. Lima Ox's. Koem Chapter 1640. Rescue to Dao Mountain. Mu Fenghai's aged eyes flickered with a sharp fighting spirit. It was as if he had been rejuvenated by a few hundred years. Mu Fenghai couldn't feel his broken limbs. The blood in his body was boiling, as if he had endless power. Looking at Qin Hao, he felt as if there was no mountain he couldn't cross. This was Denda's charm. With him here, nothing in the world could be defeated. "Mu Fenghai, I don't have much time. You should be able to see that my body has undergone a huge change. My cultivation has regressed. Everything needs to be planned, so time is even more precious. Qin Hao said. Understood. Mu Fenghai nodded. His hands fell to the ground, propping up his broken body. A fist-sized seashell appeared in his palm. It flickered with a halo and took the initiative to fall towards Qin Hao. Qin Hao caught it in his palm and placed it next to his ear, muttering. This was a communication tool unique to the Mu clan's upper echelons. It required a unique chant to unlock it. At this moment, a familiar voice faintly sounded in his ear. Everything is fine. Please don't worry. 8 words. The voice disappeared. The seashell turned to dust. Wei Wei left her voice here. She didn't say half a word. Everything was fine. Please don't worry. That's all. Qin Hao lowered his head and looked at Mu Fenghai. Yes. Mu Fenghai nodded and admitted. Ancestor Yue only left behind a sentence. Please don't worry. When Mu Yue took the seashell, Mu Fenghai was present. After the ancestor returned, she didn't alarm any of the clansmen on the stone island. She rushed into the volcano and found him. During this time, Mu Yue asked about the Mu clan situation and secretly observed how the clansmen lived for a few days. Then, she quietly left. Apart from Mu Fenghai, no one knew she had come. She didn't cause any trouble for the Gu clan. Even Mu Fenghai didn't know where she went. Phew! Qin Hao heaved a long sigh and nodded after thinking for a while. Wei Wei is very cautious and correct. It was unknown whether or not it was because she had experienced the calamity of death, but Mu Yue's temperament had changed a great deal compared to 600 years ago. If it were in the past, she would have definitely caused a ruckus in the East Sea and would not rest until the Gui race was dead. Even if she died, she would not let them have an easy time. However, this time, she was exceptionally low-key and quiet. Wasn't Qin Hao the same? Otherwise, how could they have allowed the Sharks clan's vile characters to bully the Mu clan? They would have killed them long ago. But he knew that that would only create more trouble. With his current realm, he still couldn't fight against old ancestor Han Tian. The Mu clan couldn't afford the price 600 years ago. Even the slightest bit of extreme behavior would lead to an irrecoverable tragedy. We can wait. We've waited for 600 years. So what if we wait for another 600 years? The Mu clan can afford to wait. The fighting spirit in Mu Fenghai's eyes did not diminish. Old ancestor Yue's return reassured him. Qin Hao's appearance gave him a strong motivation. There was enough time. He believed that Dendi and Empress Ziwei could both restore their former peak emperor's path. Today, I can't promise you anything. The only thing I can guarantee is that as long as I, Qin Hao, am alive, the Mu clan will only get better and better, Qin Hao said. Kill old ancestor Han Tian, destroy the Penglai Gu clan, take back the Mu clan's celestial mountain, and rescue Mu Xinjiao from the Sunset Peak? He couldn't do any of those things now. Empty promises were not Denda's style. But as long as he was alive, he could lead the Mu clan to grow stronger step by step. At that time, when he had a certain amount of capital, he could talk about waging war against the Gu clan and rescuing Uncle Mu. Your words are enough, Mu Fenghai said with tears in his eyes. Denda's promises were as heavy as a mountain. He would definitely fulfill his promises. Everyone in the East Continent knew Qin Hao's character. I don't have any food here, but I have plenty of primordial crystal stones. Take them and distribute them to the clansmen so that everyone can improve their cultivation as soon as possible. Qin Hao looked inside the stone castle. The place was quite big, like a small hall. Forget it, let's just collapse it. With a wave of his hand, a resplendent radiance swept towards the ground like a stream of water. The sound of splashing could be heard incessantly. Just as Mu Fenghai was immersed in joy, in the blink of an eye, the ground of the huge stone castle was almost filled up. The remaining Mu clan elder was almost buried. Isn't this too much? In front of him was a dazzling world. Mu Fenghai had never seen so many primordial crystal stones since the decline of his clan. Moreover, they were all earth crystals. Not much, about 17 million primordial crystal stones. Your place is small, so I can keep some more, Qin Hao said. It's okay, I have a spatial treasure. Mu Fenghai said excitedly. He waved his arm, and all the primordial crystal stones in the room were swept into his sleeve. Then, he looked at Qin Hao eagerly. Why didn't you say so earlier? Qin Hao rolled his eyes at the old man. Light flickered between his fingers, and a beam of light was directly injected into Mu Fenghai's sleeve. It almost tore his sleeve. Enough, enough. Sovereign Lord, on your way here, did you rob any overlord forces in the East Continent? Mu Fenghai said in shock. His sleeve suddenly became heavy. Under the probing of his mind, the number of primordial crystal stones was shocking. With my current state, once I meet them, do you think I can survive? Qin Hao rolled his eyes at the old man again. There were hundreds of countries in the East Continent and dozens of sovereign lords. He couldn't beat any of them now. However, his primordial crystal stones were genuine, and the quality was top-notch. At the Broken Dragon Cliff in western Liang, there was a sky crystal dragon mine that spanned tens of thousands of miles. On this trip from the northern border, Haidafu gave him a lot of sky crystal stones to fill the Void Warship's fuel. Moreover, in the auction in the southern region's Golden Light City, he also made a lot of money from elixirs. Later, he simply swallowed the primordial crystal stones stolen by Li Wanji into his own pocket. The southern region's 3 sovereigns and 4 sects, 7 overlords, used hundreds of millions of earth crystal stones in the auction. Later, when Li Wanji's identity was exposed, he ran away. Ning Wu suffered a huge loss because of this. 80 million earth crystal stones and 7 million sky crystal stones. If you live long enough, you can probably become a sovereign after refining all of them. However, I advise you not to do so. On the day you die and attract the sovereign's tribulation, the other clansmen probably won't use them much. Remember to remind them to cultivate secretly and keep a low profile. Otherwise, if the Gue clan discovers anything unusual, even I can't protect you, Qin Hao advised. Rest assured, Sovereign Lord. In the past 600 years, we haven't learned anything else, but our endurance and concealment skills have been trained to perfection. Mu Fenghai knew what Qin Hao meant, so he wasn't worried about this. Even when the old Sovereign Lord was still alive, the clan didn't earn so much earth crystal stones and high-grade sky crystal stones. Even the Gue clan probably wasn't as rich as Qin Hao now. If the clansmen didn't control it well and cultivated crazily, it would bring about a huge disaster. Yes, keep a low profile and cultivate. I'll think of a way to get rid of the Sharks clan and stop them from harassing you. In the future, you won't eat moldy food anymore. With the spiritual qi of the earth crystal stones, who would eat that stuff? Mu Fenghai's eyes flashed with pride. When a cultivator reached the high level of Sky Grandmaster, they would start to abstain from eating. The energy contained in food was too little. How could it compare to the spiritual qi of the earth crystal stones? In the past, they ate inferior food to save cultivation resources for their children. Now, they didn't need to save anymore. Yes. Qin Hao nodded. I'm leaving. Next time, I hope to see a brand new Mu clan. The Mu clan of Penglai will never disappoint the Sovereign Lord. Mu Fenghai kowtowed again and sent him off respectfully. When he looked up, Qin Hao was already gone. He left behind a large amount of cultivation resources. As for what they would become, it was entirely up to Mu Fenghai and the others. In the past 600 years, the Mu clan had declined and lost all their experts. Many of their inheritances and sovereign techniques should have been broken. However, since Wei Wei had been here, Qin Hao believed that the problem of cultivation techniques should have been solved. Where did Wei Wei go? Everything is fine. Please don't worry. Qin Hao also couldn't guess where she would be. After witnessing the tragic situation of her clansmen and her father being imprisoned by Zhan Wu at Sunset Peak, Wei Wei changed her previous style and left silently. One could imagine how much weight she was bearing in her heart. Qin Hao understood her. No matter how much she restrained herself, that girl's character would never change. She chose to leave without alerting anyone. She must have gone to improve. Only by recovering her peak cultivation as soon as possible could she change the current situation of the Mu clan and try to rescue the old sovereign lord. And these were precisely the problems that Qin Hao was facing. As soon as the team entered Donghai, senior sister met with an accident and lost the backing of an unblemished great emperor. Qin Hao felt tremendous pressure. His mood was completely different from before the team set off. If nothing happened to senior sister, he could kill Ancestor Hantian now and go to Sunset Peak to ask for his help. Now, could he? No. Maybe Zhan Wu wouldn't kill him for old time's sake. But what if he was imprisoned too? His top priority was to find a way to recover his peak cultivation. At the same time, he secretly investigated the whereabouts of Xiaohan, Wuk, Su Jin, and Zhou Ying. Only when everyone was together could they unleash a greater power. However, the person who stopped them on the way to Donghai had a shocking cultivation. Senior sister had a chance to escape from the battle with the evil soul. But facing this person, she couldn't even escape and was killed directly. After killing him, the thunder wave of Dao might seriously injured all of them. It directly blasted Qin Hao from Donghai to Penglai. Such a long distance. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Who could it be? Could it be someone from the Phoenix God clan? Qin Hao thought as he hurried along. He immediately denied the thought in his heart. Senior Sister Muri had hidden in the Divine Palace for 1,000 years. During this period, she couldn't have made any connections with experts from the outside world. But looking at Senior Sister's reaction, that person was no stranger to her. The Phoenix God clan was the biggest suspect, but her people had no reason to attack. I will never forget this grudge. Sooner or later, I will find you. In the vast Donghai, a small boat set off from Penglai and headed towards Donghai. He had to think of a way to find Wuk and Xiaohan first. After they met up, they would discuss it together. However, it wouldn't be easy to find them. Donghai was too big. Qin Hao vaguely remembered that everyone was injured and blasted in different directions. He couldn't release the king spirit from his previous life to cover the void. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, but that he didn't dare to. There were too many experts in Donghai. When Qin Hao released the king spirit to spy, the experts could also track his aura. If he was recognized by those guys, especially Han Lingxian and Zhan Wu, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, he could only search slowly. Of course, in the meantime, he had something very important to do. Qilin Taoist Mountain. Chapter 1641. Everyone was not in a good state. The East Continent was filled with experts, and the factions were complex. Perhaps it would be difficult to gather them, and the process would be long, but Qin Hao believed that everyone would be safe. Han Wuk, Su Jin, and Zhou Ying had all entered the Emperor's path. They had the ability to protect themselves, and if they did not provoke the emperors of the overlord-level factions, they would be able to live a carefree life. Their situation would only get better after they got through this crisis. And now, he needed to go to the Mountain of Dao on behalf of his senior sister. He needed to complete the wish of his senior brother from the eastern sky and take care of the people of the Mountain of Dao. This was also Qin Hao's promise. The Mountain of Dao was located in the inland of the East Continent. He remembered that it was slightly to the south, far from Daqin. Although he did not know its exact location, he would know once he went there. The small boat moved along the water, constantly moving towards the East Continent. However, it moved very slowly, as he could not easily reveal his cultivation. Fang Ye's bizarre death had caused a huge commotion in the Penglai Thousand Islands. The sea areas under the control of the sky-shaking race had been completely sealed off by experts. Anyone who came across any suspicious individuals would be forcefully captured and brought back to their race for interrogation. Qin Hao could only pretend to be a fisherman. Moreover, his disguise was perfect. When he spoke in a Penglai accent, and no one could tell that he was a fisherman. After all, he often visited the Mu clan in his previous life. He was both a teacher and a friend of the old emperor. Because of this, the people of the Mu clan treated Dende like a senior. For more than a month, the boat moved slowly. It was boring and uninteresting, and he could not cultivate. The East Sea was huge, and the land under the control of the Sky Shaker race was very vast. When Qin Hao was bored, he would chat with the fishermen he met. At this speed, it will take another 3 months to safely cross Sakura Island. Qin Hao looked up ahead. Sakura Island was only a large island at the edge of the East Sea. It was still very far from the East Continent. However, he had no choice. "Hey, don't come over. Run, run." Suddenly, there was an anxious shout from a stranger in front. Qin Hao saw that many fishing boats were frantically escaping from the opposite direction, as if they were trying to escape this area. "Fellow villagers, what's the matter?" Qin Hao gripped the oars tightly and revealed a panicked expression as he shouted at the approaching fishing boat. "It's war. The Hui and Shuo races are fighting. Run." While they were talking, the fishing boats passed by Qin Hao like a gust of wind. The fishermen of the Eastern Sea did not have a high cultivation base. They could deal with weak sea beasts, but if they were to be caught in the flames of war between two overlords, they would be torn to pieces in an instant. One by one, the strong men on the boat rowed like crazy, as if they were racing a dragon boat. They passed by Qin Hao and didn't even dare to look back. Reminding others was already out of good intentions. They wanted them to stay and take Qin Hao with them. Sorry, life and death were up to fate. Shuo clan. Qin Hao looked at the fleeing fishing boat. One of the 3 immortals of Penglai, the overlord force that was on par with the Mu clan and the Ji clan in the past, had actually started a war with the Ji clan? Could it be because of Fang Ye? Qin Hao immediately thought of this. The time he killed Fang happened to be at the critical juncture of old ancestor Han Tian's birthday celebration. Fang Ye's status was extremely high, and he was accompanied by Emperor Yuan's protection. Although he was extremely weak, he didn't need to carry any magic treasures because he himself was the most powerful one. In Penglai, who dared to touch the great-grandson of old ancestor Han Tian? The Shuo clan didn't dare to either. That would cause a great war. However, someone had eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts and destroyed Fang. Of course, the blame would be placed on the Shuo clan's head. Qin Hao's unintentional action made the Shuo clan a scapegoat. "Let's go and take a look." The oars in Qin Hao's hand quickly moved forward, drawing a dazzling afterimage. No matter who won or lost, it didn't affect him anyway. Maybe he could take advantage of the chaos to disguise himself as a warrior of the Shuo clan and hide. That way, he could save a lot of time. At this moment, Qin Hao simply abandoned the oars. His body bloomed with brilliance as he directly flew towards the battlefield. Fight, the more chaotic it was, the better. Soon, Qin Hao rushed to the battlefield. There were 2 groups of forces in front of him. One group had fewer people, and it was the Shuo clan. The other group had more people, and it was the Heavenly Ho clan. Now, the Ho clan's camp had surrounded the Shuo clan in the sky like an iron bucket. They couldn't escape even if they had wings. "Shuo Kai, hand over the thing in your hand, and I can spare your lives." An irresistible voice spread. In the Ho clan's camp, a young man with the light of the human emperor around him shouted at the surrounded Shuo clan with a cold face. "Why?" In the middle of the Shuo clan's members, an extremely beautiful woman replied coldly. She was holding a sea spear in her hand. This sea spear was rusty all over. It was unknown how many years it had fallen to the bottom of the sea and been corroded by the seawater, but the weapon still gave off a terrifying aura. Qi Zhengliang, water-splitting Emperor Ling Xi, was discovered by my young miss. You surrounded us here and forced my young miss to hand it over.